All right, all right. What's good, people? Hope everybody is well. Let's see here. Trying my stuff together over here. So hope everybody's doing their thing. Welcome back to the Onyx Report, Black Masculinist News for the day. Let me go ahead and get this started. So y'all know what it is. Welcome back. Been a little bit of a few days trying to get things technically going. Happy Friday to everybody. Like, share, subscribe, join, donate, support the channel if you would, so we can continue to bring you independent black male thought. Let me just jump right out and say thank you to Barry Little. Appreciate that support right out the gate. I liked it before, so I'm back for more. Kicking off tonight's donation drive. Let's go. Appreciate that, Barry. And for all the information you put up, shout out to you. Shout out to my good Libra brother, Dr. Thunder. Appreciate that support, man. Hope you're well. Yeah, man. Oh, let me see. Go ahead and I wanted to start acknowledging people that send cash apps in between shows. I wanted to thank y'all for that. Shout out to Dark Power for that. Shout out to David Smith with another generous donation. Shout out to you. Let's see. Shout out to Greg. Appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and bring my good brother up. Brother BGS. We can get this kicked off. There you go. Hey, man.
What's up, Doc?
What's going on with you, man?
Nothing much. Nothing much. Riding shotgun.
Yeah, man. Sometimes I need to have some fun. I said, let me call my brother up and chop. Makes it fun. Shout out to Indigo, LXST. Got a number of brothers in the house. Mark, what's going on? Ron, Big Mo. Let's see here. Black Toxic Masculinist, what's up? I'm listening. Busy Mike. Jay Kenyatta, Ahmed. Good brother Malika, what's good with you, man? Shout out to Maggie. Maggie Thompson dropped a nice video last night. I got a chance to watch. So if y'all haven't checked it out, Maggie Thompson, Under the Veil, she dropped a very interesting video. So shout out to her. Ante, what's up? Appreciate the donation. Prince in the house. What's going on? Marcus in the house. Marcus Taylor. Shout out to Ghetto User. Peace to all. Appreciate that support. Creative Force. We got M Lavo in the house. Appreciate the support. Says just showing love that F-book post about the dark world of women exploits was very real. If people, especially men, only knew, women are just as guilty. Just saying, yeah.
Worse.
Man, it's when they have the assumption of innocence, you'd be surprised what people do behind your back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, worse. What men really don't want to know about them cheating.
Oh man, no. That's when multiple people get sent to either hospitals or dirt. You know what I mean?
yeah. Because if you find out, that means that's disrespect.
Oh man. Yeah. You spend the rest of your life in jail over a 60-second decision. So, yeah. Danny, what's up? Black Mind in the house. What's going on? We got Cameron in the house. Shout out to Cameron. So, what's good? What's good with you? Appreciate that support. Let me see. Now, as I ask y'all to make sure you continue to support the show tonight, and of course, we're welcoming Brother BGS, who's got an open door pass to the show. There's no question for life, even when he's retired, sitting on a beach somewhere. He better call in because it's he got it like that. Shout out to CR Frank, appreciate that support. But you're just coming off a show. You did an AMA today, right?
Yeah.
What did you
do? Well, just a few things. Talked about. They want to talk about Bitcoin. They want to talk about the Suez Canal, and then we talked about demographics and how important they were, and why they're importing so many people into the United States. To keep the financial system afloat. Had to get in somebody, Pan-Africans behind about that. Who said, "Well, I don't support immigration." Especially when we have so many homeless black people. I said, I agree with you. But the thing is that, the state doesn't care. It does what it has to do. And that's what I'm trying to get you to understand. So understand how you feel, but the thing is, feeling has nothing to do with what's going to go on. There's nothing you can actually do about it. because they're doing it. They don't want to do it, but they have to.
Yeah.
So a lot of things we get, there's not enough road for the can to get kicked down, so they're gonna have to do things they don't like.
Yeah, and we get hit with the changes. But as long as we get the inside scoop from good brothers like the Oracle here, we can stay ahead of the curve.
What they say about a spoonful of sugar?
Was,
Makes the medicine go down.
I don't know if it's sugar or a 12-inch foot, but either way, it's going down.
Well, the Pharaoh had a flail and a crook, right? Okay. The crook was to guide you. The flail is in case it hit you on your hard-headed behind, in case you don't want to go in that direction.
Okay. So you using both, huh?
I try to use the crook first, okay? So I had to use the flail today.
Yeah, so I got there were some moments. I was like, oh, this is looking like it might get a little heated.
Yeah, the thing is that I don't like people constantly tapping, trying to interact with me during the chat. I said, hey, man, when I drop a link, come on up. But people don't want to do it because you get exposed.
Okay, well, hold on. I'm just trying to
catch up.
Something up. No, I just want to share something. Share something that some of y'all might enjoy. Let me go ahead and delete that. But okay. Let me back up here. All right. So a couple things up front. Let me see if my stream deck went out for a minute. So making sure we're all good. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. As I said, support the channel. And we'll keep it coming to you. Also, make sure if you haven't, you go ahead and pick up the book from Routledge, Solutions for Anti-Black Misandry, by yours truly. Shout out to Mississippi Delta guy in the house. It's peace, love, and hair grease. Appreciate that.
Heard that.
Shout out to the brother. Now, I got to introduce y'all to the newest addition to the family. Right, the newest addition to the family, just as of yesterday. And this one, is dear to my heart. And I will give y'all a hint in case you don't know. If you're on Facebook, you probably do know. But not familiar, this is Denzel from Book of Eli. And he's carrying a very beautiful blade. And, I just thought at this point, it might be a good thing for me to introduce y'all to the latest edition. So,
ooh, pretty.
There she goes. Yeah, man. Part of the new sword collection. In addition to it, my Book of Eli. So, I'm going to go ahead and welcome her. You know what I'm saying?
Back to the dust.
Thorns and thistles. I love when he says that, man. Thorns and thistles. I love it, man. I love it. Denzel be killing it. Yeah, man. Had to get it. I had to get it, man. She's gorgeous. She came yesterday. I was like, ooh. And the way he handled it in that movie, man, it was vicious. He was vicious. I'm going to take that hand if you touch me again.
Told you wasn't going to get the hand back.
He kicked it to the side gently so the dude couldn't get it. I said, if y'all haven't seen Book of Eli, man, go check your boy Denzel out, man. But that sword work was nice, so I had to eventually pick that piece up. So yeah, beautiful blade. Had to share that with you. Addition to the family. I would put it up somewhere, but BGS is kicking my behind about actually getting my degrees framed. Because I think I put all my degrees in an envelope about a decade ago, and then I lost them. But I found them a couple weeks ago, so I was like, okay, let me go get them framed. And he was like, "You ain't got them framed yet?" Like,
only you, Doc. Only you.
Man, I didn't get them framed.
That Gnostic humility, So what's in my head, not what's on the paper.
Man, we just got to do the work, man. But I will get them framed, and they might have to go where the batleth is above my head right now. It's the only place I can fit them. But say a shout out to Dante. He says, man, I can't wait until I get my ducats up so I can get my collection game up. Hey, man. Shout out to Paul. It says, remind me not to attempt any home invasions. Man. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
You might not
There's
get
certain weapons.
might not get the hand back.
Man. There's certain weapons that even if you're defending your house, you will go to jail if you use. And I got too many of them. That's the jacked up part about it. You impale somebody with a spear. It's not really something you can defend in court very easily. I'm just saying, man. It was in the collection. It was right there. It was useful, but don't work.
Yeah,
Anyway.
like a weapons wheel. So if somebody comes in it and said, "Okay, which weapon are we gonna pick?"
Oh man, you giving me ideas, man. I can't talk to you, man. Because now I'm thinking about a weapons wheel. So
you get the bat lift today. Okay.
Man. Hear a noise and be like, spin the wheel real quick.
Hey, you hear this. What is that? That's the weapons wheel.
You'd be like, ooh, I haven't used this one in a while.
Ooh, shotgun. Ooh.
Oh yeah. So it's on, man. It's on. Anyway. So y'all know the deal, man. We're gonna get to the second interview that I'm aware of. I don't know if there are any more between Nick Cannon and Iyanla Vanzant. And this one is dealing with the whole notion of the deadbeat dad. So y'all know that I'm like, well, I want to have some fun with this. So let me call my brother in so we can just kind of chop it up as it goes. I set it at, I think about 1.25 speed, I believe. But as you guys know, for copyright purposes, I took the video of it out. So I just put up, an image that will rotate, very slowly across the course of the video. But y'all know the deal. So when you see it's not moving, I don't want people thinking that there's something wrong. Because I got hit with a copyright on the last video just for showing a TikTok.
Okay.
And they demonetized the video just for that. So, I'm trying to keep out of those. Shout out to Hurricane. There's BGS taco stand tax.
Side of quesadilla with cilantro and onions.
Yeah, but your taco stand girl, she be giving you stuff for free. So I
ain't seen her, man. They were, she must have got married, man. I haven't seen her.
Yeah.
About a month or so. So she must have caught her a man.
Well, that's what you work for at the taco stand for. So
exactly, a little pretty brown skin.
Okay. All right. So tell me real before I start this video up, BGS, is the background music all right, or is it too loud?
That sounds fine. It's about right. Yeah.
Or I'm working with different systems, so they add up. But here we go. So let me just go ahead and get this up, and we can get it started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor, privilege, and pleasure to be joined once again by the Honorable Dr. Iyanla Vanzant. Yeah. Can I call you? Yeah.
You have to.
Okay, tell me, can y'all hear that clear? Are you guys able to hear that? BGS?
Yeah, I can hear it fine. Put a 1 in if you guys can hear that clearly.
Sounded a little muffled. I was concerned. Okay, so 1. Okay, here we go. So
that's my son, but I think he might let you.
Yeah, I love that's my mother's mother, right? Is that what that?
Mother's mother. Yeah.
And so all your grandchildren call
they call me.
Yeah. That's awesome. Because nobody wants to be called grandma no more. My mom is like, don't call her grandma.
Nana.
Yeah, Nanny Beth, Nana, like all.
That's real. I noticed that when my son was born, not one of his grandmothers wanted to be grandma. Everybody have a different name.
Everybody would make me sound old.
Yeah, man. And personally, I don't give a damn. If I live long enough to be grandpa, I'm good with it.
Yep.
I don't mind Papa. Sometimes you diverge to whatever the kid can actually say, but I'm good with grandpa. But I noticed that with women, it's a huge issue for some reason, particularly in Black. I don't know if that's happening in other communities like that.
No, that's really mostly Black women.
Yeah. Fear of getting old kind of thing or something.
Yeah.
Those
Fifi.
Yeah.
Fifi's another one.
Yeah.
Well, most people call me Iya because Iyanla is not a name, it's a title.
Okay.
Iyanla means the great mother or the mother of the village, and her responsibility is to provide for the spiritual, cultural health of the community. So it's very interesting, people running around naming their children Iyanla now, not understanding the responsibility that they are putting on that soul. So Iya simply means ma or mother.
That's powerful. So, let's talk about the village.
You notice how we have so much mother worship in the Black community. Supreme mother, goddess mother, queen mother. So much mother worship. And I've been saying this for years, man. Fatherhood is a lost art, not not only in terms of those of us who, have sought out how to do it properly, have tried to learn it, even though we weren't taught, but
Yeah.
also in terms of, whether or not fatherhood is appreciated in the community. I mean, that's one of the things that I've been hearing for years, man. All this mother worship, but there's almost no mention of fathers whatsoever, even when fathers are putting it down.
Comes with the soap and towels in the hotel.
You ain't shit for that. Exactly.
I had a baby. You got to be father. So what? Do it.
Oh, goodness. Shout out to Greg for the Cash App. Shout out to Dante. Says great mother, of course. Exactly. Right. And yet, even when we look at the data and we look at how fathers actually perform, even when single fathers,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? We perform far better than we're given credit for, but we got mother worship all over the place. So, to me, it's a bit annoying, but
it's the gynarchy, gentlemen.
Yeah, very much is.
What do you expect?
Yeah.
In this session.
Well, let's talk about it. But let me.
Oh, you gonna take? I'm on your couch. Go for it.
Because first of all, to me, you're one of the youngins.
Yes.
I'll take it. I always pray for you and look for you. And
I need it.
And when things happen, and I remember when you made a statement and you got kind of beat up really bad, and then the situation with your children and people and have their experience of that. But I look and I hear. I don't have the judgment. I just don't have the judgment because I didn't make you. Your soul has a contract. Those children have a contract with you, and you, all of that. That's none of my business. Here's my business. How did that feel? How did it feel? Not what did you think about it, not what did you do about it. I never heard anybody ask you, wow, how does that feel?
Feels like a lot of pressure.
Now, 2 points there. One raised by Doc H93. What's good with you, man? Says never a man, always a boy. So she sunned him earlier on. You
right.
Get that kind of dynamic.
Yeah, but she's the matriarch in charge. Yeah.
Yeah. Now clearly there's an age difference. There's no question about it. Yeah. But the fact that she, what did Kevin used to call it? Put your dick up.
Yeah.
It really is her putting it on the table, like let's set the dynamic clear. You are a child to me. Now, in these kind of discussions in popular culture, that doesn't have to happen. It's clear. There's no question Nick Cannon is younger than you, but for that to be that dynamic to be pushed and put on the table in such fashion, it's like putting your balls on the table to say, I'm in charge here. I'm in charge. I'm Queen Mama, as Wanda says over here. Right.
Yeah, she said that early too. And Iyanla is the title. I'm Queen Mother.
Right. So we're going to set the power dynamic in place, and and so that's the first thing I noticed. The other thing was when she asked him how he felt about what took place a while ago when he made statements about a particular community and he costed for it. She asked him how he felt, and he got quiet because I would venture to say, as men in general, how often do people ask you how you feel?
Very seldom.
Exactly.
Very seldom. Unless you're in an argument with a female, then she wants to know how you feel. She wants to.
He said, unless you're in an argument.
Yeah.
But it's go ahead.
I know she. So in other words, what she's doing is putting him in his feminine by asking how he feels. Yeah. Which is fine.
But at the same time, I'm saying it's a rarity.
It is.
Even ask men that.
Yeah.
And so you often find, especially men who are holding it down for families, that they're rarely asked how they're feeling. They're rarely, checked in. People, as you said, people just treat you like the hotel towels or the carpet at that.
Yeah, that's a different story. The carpet.
You're just that you're an expected quotient. That makes my life stable, and that's as far as that goes. So I found it a little surprising when she asked, even though you're right, it still was about putting him in his feminine too. But the fact that she asked, I noticed how rare that is in general. So there we
go.
Which part?
All of it, but specifically different kinds of pressure. There's the pressure of healing and figuring it out in the public eye, accepting my imperfections, but in everyone else not. And then the ultimate pressure of just fatherhood in general.
Yeah.
Not understanding it because I didn't come up in the typical Orthodox household, wanting to overcompensate, wanting to be a super dad, and then still being judged for my process while figuring out the process. Like I was like, I don't have it all figured out yet. I'm trying to, and so that pressure, I never like to use the word overwhelmed because I'm not overwhelmed.
Well, let me define it for you from a spiritual perspective. Overwhelm is trying to convince yourself that you can do something that you don't actually believe you can do.
Exactly.
And I think you believe and intend to
Do.
be a father,
Yes.
be there for your children, even if you're not in continuing relationship with their mother.
Right. And then, like I said, we'll unpack all of that. But I think, I mean, that's a great question, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the sincerity of it, because people don't ask me that, or even when people do say, "How you feeling?" they don't really care. They just making sure, like, almost like, are you going to be able to maintain what you've been
No, I'm
maintaining?
asking you, how did it feel for you to have, first of all, your personal, well, a human stumble, I think in the comment about that was considered anti-Semitic.
Right.
To me, that's a human stumble,
Yeah.
you know?
And again, in a sense of, I mean, it was a growing moment, it was a healing moment, but to then be attacked by multiple cultures of trying to figure it out.
And people say far nastier things than that at Bubba's barbecue joint in Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, you know, on either side of the road.
And that's the thing. And I mean, I've created platforms, and even, you know, while creating council culture, and, you know, I have solution platforms with the ADL and so many different things. But it is, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but it is the responsibility of strong voices.
Yeah.
And so I know I have a strong voice. For whatever reason in life, people pay attention to what I say. They're fascinated by my life.
They're nosy.
Yeah, but also I've been outspoken, you know,
Yes, you have.
throughout my years, and you know, sometimes I look back at a lot of these interviews and things that are going viral, and I cringe. I said that, or I mean, you know, but at least you'll be able to see the growing process of who I'm becoming as a man.
And that's what I see.
Yeah.
From what I tell you, when I woke up at 1 o'clock this morning and Drumline was on. Well,
Getting them residuals, I appreciate it.
but when I was asking you that, how did it feel, and how did you feel? You know, people counting your kids and counting the relationships. Where do you take that? What do you do with that?
We talked about, or you brought up in our last session, inadequacy
Yes.
in a space of even.
You know, I can say that's something I hadn't thought about in a while. In the contemporary social media moment, if a woman has a lot of kids, we do talk about it.
Yeah, we do.
But that wasn't always the case. In the last few decades, if men had an excessive number of kids, I've heard it discussed, but you weren't really allowed to talk about or criticize women that had a lot of kids. I think one of the recent posts I've been seeing, or recent videos I've seen going around from Kendra G, I think it was, where she was interviewing a woman that had 7 kids. Oh no, it was I think that was from a show. It was from like a panel, an on-stage panel discussion of an audience.
Yeah.
And she had like 7 kids.
Yeah. But
and she was looking for a new man. Yeah. And there was a point in time in the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s where, you know, that wasn't going to be a thing that men discussed openly.
No.
You know, I don't know. Is that just me, or did you notice that?
No. It was whispered, like in barbershop or between one another. It wasn't actually talked about openly.
Yeah. Now it's starting to be, which I think is reflective of how many men are starting to speak up.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to see women, you know, falling on their back heels, you know, responding to men for the first time, you know, maybe even ever. I mean, I've never personally seen this many men take the stage to make their thoughts known.
I think that because there's been such a push and a demand for Black men to actually marry and date and marry single mothers, that it wasn't like that before. If you did, you did. If you didn't, you didn't. The thing is now, it's like they want Black men to actually, actually, like I said, I think Paul Elam said it, man up and marry these sluts. You know.
Oh damn! Okay.
Yeah, that was one of his titles, one of his papers.
Wow. Okay.
You know.
All right.
So I think there's more of a demand, like we just had it with Dr. Umar, and then Dr. Boyce Watkins did a whole week about single motherhoods, and especially about that particular video about
Okay.
how come is it not those kids and that woman deserving of love, even though she has 7 kids? How
Mhm.
you cowardly brothers don't step up into the plate and get with women like that?
But
So
the interesting thing too, and we've been hearing also about football players lately who have been having babies with,
yeah,
Instagram models or
yeah.
whatever they call
Oh, that
themselves.
yes, they never stopped. Yeah,
But the interesting thing about the shaming that goes along with it is we're hearing this shaming from men, regarding men who have the means to take care of those families.
yeah.
I may not be in agreement with
Hmm.
getting an Instagram, woman pregnant or whatever, but it's not like anybody's worried about whether this kid's gonna have food, clothing, and shelter. And
Yeah,
that goes along with Nick Cannon's kids as well.
yeah.
What does he got? 10, 11 at this point? I don't know how many
Got
he has.
got duels. If you counting Mariah Carey's, yeah, about 10.
But no, this is clearly not somebody that people are worried about who can't support his family, and yet he's being talked about as if this is some great crime that's being committed. But women with 3 to 7 kids can
Yeah,
get up as far as women are concerned, and how dare you say anything to her?
yeah.
So it's an interesting dynamic, as far as I'm concerned. But I'm seeing it shift, in real time because I'm watching men speak up. You know, uh, let me see here. There we go. So let me go back to it. Here we go.
Who I am supposed to be. I've done many things. I've been doing this for over 3 decades, and there's been expectations. There's been great achievements. But as I sit here as a man in his 40s, and the common conversation about me is, me and my my fertileness, or
Yes.
what relationship I'm in or no longer in, or who I'm dating. And when I feel like, when I'm
Did
thinking
you want to
legacy,
stop
when I'm
it?
thinking all that I have to offer, if that's the main remembrance, if that's the thing, which is great, like I want to be remembered as a father, and that is my first priority in life. But I feel like even in the space of my career, I have so much to offer, from spaces like this to the arts, to the opportunity.
I'm
He
sorry.
he.
Guy got me off track. It's,
Uh,
it's Mary about baby mama when Dr. Umar marries one of his.
that's true. Got a point. Good point.
Oh my goodness. I
Good.
wasn't ready for that. I
Good.
wasn't ready.
Excellent point.
Yeah. But I've actually heard women in the last 5 years or so pushing back against dating men with kids, even when they have them. I mean, I've literally seen them get up on some of these, online dating shows talking
Right.
about, I don't want to date a man with kids. And it's like, well, don't you have 3 or 4? Well, yeah, but I don't want to date one with kids. And it's an interesting kind of arrogance that you kind of
Hmm.
see play out there.
Yeah, yeah. In other words, Cinderella, and I don't want a Cinderella because I already have the wicked stepsister. So I don't want to. I want all the resources for me and my
Oh,
children.
and yeah, and I've had that. I've experienced that.
Hmm.
Um, Even dating a woman with kids when I had kids, it
Yeah.
was just, it was interesting to see. And this is before, this is years before I ever pondered on any of this stuff. But I'm just, hearing women actually make demands of my resources in regard to her children with no thought whatsoever
Yep.
of my own son. And I found it interesting because it went against this kind of Walt Disney, women are always inherently maternal. I used to have
Oh
that
no.
belief.
Oh no. Walt Disney talks about the wicked stepmother all the time.
You know what I mean, though. It's
Yeah.
not Walt Disney literally. I'm
Okay.
saying the
Yeah.
idea that
Yeah.
women are inherently maternal, and
Maternal
that,
and kind and stuff like that. Everybody's the TV mom.
because as soon as you especially because the way it happened for me once my wife passed, my son is 4.
Hmm.
So I'm also, when I'm dating, of course, I'm thinking about, can this woman be a mother and whatnot. And I was amazed to find how many women were not only not interested in motherhood in
Yeah.
regard to anyone that wasn't theirs, but they were hyper interested in what I could do for her kids.
Yes.
And she could do this while standing in front of and looking at my son and dead in the face.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I wasn't prepared at that time for female nature. I didn't know it
Mm.
functioned that way. So I was caught off guard. But,
Yeah. 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 Well, it's counter to our programming. Let's put it that way.
it is. It is. Well, and that's also because when you're raised in a gynocracy, we're told what
Hmm.
the value of motherhood is. Again, I go back to the titles, the supreme mother, the queen mothers.
Hmm.
Motherhood is venerated and pedestalized. but it contradicts what women actually do or can be capable of. And so, when you're raised in this kind of system with this kind of socialization, it can be difficult to reconcile what you see women do, what you've seen women do in your own family.
Right.
This is what you're taught women are.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, the only thing that really forced me to question it is now I had someone that I was more concerned with than women. I had my son. I wasn't concerned with advocating for myself in regard to women. It took my son's presence for me to start asking questions that I didn't ask prior.
Yeah, the package deal only goes one way, right?
Yeah. In many instances, it only goes one way. But I think the other part of it too is that for maybe other men other than me, it may actually take, mobilizing on behalf of your own child in ways that you might not have thought to mobilize for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you're raised in this kind of gynocracy, you accept it. But when you see it hurt your child, it may be the means, it may be what takes it, to another level for you. Each of us is triggered by something different, at least for those of us that are dealing with these questions of gynocracy. There's something that's triggered you. It's usually not purely an academic endeavor or a theoretical one. It's usually something that's triggered you to ask questions. I think one of those things for me was my son. But I don't know if that took place with you, or what triggered you in regard to this red pill.
I was about 20 and realized that women who get married and not faithful. When a young woman got married, we'll say wait 6 months and then hit on her, see what happens.
Damn.
That was a standard thing. She gets married. You get married, baby. Okay, that was 6 months, huh?
Oh man. I'm assuming the results of that. I don't know. And you were the one hitting on her, huh?
No, I didn't mess with married women.
Okay. All right.
That wasn't my thing.
Wink.
Hey, a man's got to have a code, right? It's not morals, but he have to have a code. Batman has a code. Okay.
A shotgun to the door instead of set up a code in a second.
Oh yeah, well you know how it is. That 9mm in the coat pocket. So.
Oh man, a stranger knocking on your door that you don't know. With a coat on and something in his pocket. You talking about that cat?
No, I'm talking about me walking into a place.
You don't know, honey.
Hey, from the dust we come, to the dust you shall return, sir.
Oh man, shout out to Dr. Thunder. Check him out. He says, I knew something was wrong, but it was 100% my son that caused me to become vocal. Indeed.
Yes. Yeah.
Indeed. But notice we're not always able to do that for ourselves, especially as children, as young men. But when you got this kid, staring up at you, and you're the only thing, that's there for him. It changes your priorities. That's really what I want to say.
Yeah.
So here we go.
I've provided for many other artists, but the day-to-day conversation, the thing that goes viral, the thing that people are constantly talking about
that's the lowest common denominator, though. And here,
the low frequency of it all.
Right. And that's what keeps people occupied in your life and negligent of their own. Negligent of their own.
Right.
I think you have 10 kids, 11, whatever.
Whatever you say.
I'm not saying that. I did a show with some.
Whatever you say.
He's not going to neither confirm nor deny.
You might end up in court. I didn't say I recognized all of them, but I have some kids. Yes, that was very shrewd, legally speaking. Like that was shrewd. God damn, man. Let's see.
Somebody that had 34.
You know, it's funny too, and there's a screenshot that they put my face on, or
with the
dolls, and they always put my face on it. They've been waiting for this moment. Like they thought you was gonna bring the dolls with you. But no, I mean, in that sense, and we want to talk about this because even in the space, they said right now there's over 17 million, children that are in, non-nuclear households, right, with, however it is, single parent, however you choose to define it. And I wanted to, there's two terms that I want to unpack. The first term I want to bring up is, a deadbeat dad or deadbeat father. I hear that a lot. I hear that term thrown around.
About you?
About me and many others of just men that, may not be in your traditional relationship. And then the other term that I hear quite a bit is a broken home, creating broken homes. I struggle with those things because obviously I don't want to be associated or a part of either one of those. But in asking you, if these terms do apply, I mean, I want to take accountability for them, but I want to know what we feel the definition of those are. And then not only just for myself, for someone who may not be in your traditional or conventional relationship, how can we be the best fathers to our multiple children? Or how do we mend the broken households that we may have created?
I come out of a non-traditional household. My mother was the other woman. My father lived around the corner with his wife.
Wow.
My mother lived in my grandmother's house, my father's mother's house.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay, I had to stop that there. You got a word on that, BGS?
That's the way it's always been, man. Family formation, and that's the whole trope about grandpa having two families.
Yeah. Looks like we got a troll in the comment section. Interesting. It's funny because here she is talking about her mother being a side piece and her grandmother, living where in her, what did she say? Her grandmother lived, oh shoot, I lost it. She just said it a second ago, but it's interesting. You got these women that are making these decisions who are Iyanla's mothers, grandmothers, and so on and so forth. And yet Black males are the defeated male group. Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's still, there's no moment where women are accountable. You know what I mean? Where they can be held to their decisions. They can actually be questioned in regard to their behavior. None of that.
It's just kind of left in the air that that is just what it was, and it's no fault of their own.
Oh, interesting. All right.
So I come, and what was most devastating for me in all of that, I mean, this story has lots of twists and turns, was that nobody told me the truth. I think for me, and everybody has to define this, for me, a deadbeat dad is one who doesn't honor the provision or doesn't provide provision for his seed.
Now, again, all right. So her mother, her grandmother, she's got this legacy of side pieces and yet no accountability. So she immediately goes to, she says, first, they were these side pieces. Second, nobody told me the truth, which she doesn't say her mother and her grandmother lied to her. She says, nobody told me the truth. So it sounds like this abstract thing that just happened to her, but her own mother and grandmother is not involved in that. It just occurred that nobody told her the truth. And then it went to, let me define a deadbeat dad.
Right.
Now, that seemed to me like there was ample opportunity to define a deadbeat mother, or at least, if not deadbeat, at least the responsibilities that the women in her family did not uphold to. Yeah. Notice that never came up in any of that. What do you think?
No, what is it? The need to be right, shame, guilt, and need to be right. Okay, she helped me coin that phrase. Okay, so she knows what it is. She grew up in it, and the shame is they were ashamed of being a side piece. They're guilty, and they didn't want to be wrong, so it never came up. They just never mentioned it until she grew up, because nobody told her because they were too ashamed of it, mother and grandmother.
But here she is as the queen mother, the matriarch of her family. She identifies herself even in this broadcast along those terms. And at no point does she hold her mother or grandmother or any of the women in her family responsible for their own behavior. At no point.
They did nothing wrong.
They did nothing wrong. All of the emphasis is placed on her father, a married man who lives across town. And I'm just saying, in this dynamic, this is how it is to be raised in a gynocracy. When you're raised from childhood with this type of logic, when the women of stature in your own family are blind to their behavior and any other woman's behavior, and it solely becomes about the men in question. And you can even raise questions about the women and you'll be told to be quiet if you're a child. You know what I mean? But this is the kind of socialization that takes place, and this is one of the reasons why you see black men struggling with, holding women accountable, especially to the point that it took until the last decade
Yeah.
before you really started to see black men do it online.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons it took so long. This is one of the reasons we didn't have a men's movement the way we saw a women's movement, particularly in the black community. We never had one. This is the closest thing to a men's movement we've ever had. It's because we've been socialized along these lines to be to be oblivious to women's behavior, to be hypercritical of men's behavior, and even the Queen Mother can sit on this show and do this to you as the listener or to her family, and nobody questions how she could sidestep her own mother and grandmother in this equation.
Yeah. I mean, Kirk Franklin's mother was a jump off, right? Never hear him say that.
He doesn't say it. No. But he's the problem for raising his frustrations about not knowing who his father was.
Right. Yeah.
He was the problem.
He was the problem.
And it was treated as if he had disrespected his mother by holding her accountable until he could find out who his father could be.
Yeah.
So
he had to find out. He had to find out from gossip in the town, the people that kind of knew the truth.
Yeah. Here we go.
And that doesn't have to be, I'm sure, the way you provide for your children. But my father didn't know if I had shoes or food or whatever. That's why at 70, I live alone with 2 refrigerators because of the number of days I was hungry. And he wasn't there. For me, he was a deadbeat dad. I knew who he was. I knew where he was. He didn't provide for his seed. That is the first thing that I believe a father has to do.
What's the first thing a mother has to do?
Make sure she secures a good household for her offspring.
So if you're talking about before the 60s, the 50s or whatnot, what kind of household are you constructing when you're a side piece to a married man and you're having kids knowing that he's not leaving his wife?
Right.
Is there a responsibility on your behalf in regard to your children in that scenario?
Number one, having sex with a married man in the first place was always a no-no. Just like a man having sex with a married woman. Okay, it's a no-no before you even get into it. And then to bring a baby into this world by a married man.
Now
that's how come she didn't know.
But at no point is her mother involved in this at all. Right. This is something that a married man did to her. Not something she participated in. Especially when you talk about, the advent of the pill. Now she might, predate that, but I'm saying in general, you're talking, you still hear this kind of language used in regard to women that have access to the pill and all other kinds of pharmaceutical options and whatnot. And yet it's still something he did to her. When she can decide before, during, and after whether or not she wants to be impregnated.
Yeah.
Right. Or have a child.
Or want to have the baby or raise the baby at all.
Exactly. Exactly. Shout out to Mississippi Delta. He says, I grew up naive until I realized in high school, many kids were half siblings with the same father with different mothers, multiple fathers for one mother's children. Damn.
Yep.
But again, it's something he did to them.
Yeah.
Which is almost subconsciously on par with rape, right? It's treated as if he damn near busted in the middle of the night and forced his seed or something of that nature. But when you really get into it and you find out that there was much more going on, dating, regular sex, and it's also treated like it was a one-time thing that happened. He forced it on her and she was stuck with a baby.
Yeah.
You find out these people were dating each other or dealing with each other for sometimes years.
Especially in these smaller towns, smaller cities, everybody sees everybody.
Oh yeah.
And you show up with a man or seeing a man go into the house that's recognized, say, well, baby, he's married. But you still have sex with him, you still get pregnant by him, you still have a baby by him.
You know what I think is one of the coldest things that can take place when especially if you're a teenager, you're in your 20s and you're starting to come to terms with this and you've heard that you've never met your father or whatever. And it's to find out that your mom's is still seeing him.
Yeah.
People act like this isn't happening.
Oh, it's happening. Oh,
I've
it's
seen
happening.
married men that have had 20-year side pieces with women, and
I have. That's what the three levels are about. 20 years as a jump off, friends with benefits. I mean, sometimes she friends with benefits until the man dies, really, and then the side piece, and then the wife.
we
Yeah.
talk about this all the time. We in the Black community, we laugh and joke
Hmm.
at the notion that you go to the funeral and you
Hmm.
see his other family,
Hmm.
but nobody talks about the fact that his wife may have given him 2 out of them 5 kids that wasn't his.
Yeah.
This kind of dysfunction we're talking about, we're comfortable masculinizing it and
Yeah.
making it the sole purview of men,
Yeah.
and leaving women void of criticism, analysis, reflection. They're void of all of it, which in turn allows them to be entitled about how they judge men in general, because they've grown up in an environment where women have not had to be accountable at all.
Yeah. Yeah. The old thing about marry before you carry. They don't even believe in that. Or after they carry. Well, how come
Mhm.
you didn't? You see it on Kendra G's all the time, right? How come you didn't marry the father of your child?
Right, right. And then and it's quickly dismissed.
Yeah.
Quickly
He,
dismissed.
he's violent. He's nuts. He doesn't work. Blah blah blah. Right. In other words, she always asks, "Well, did you know that before you got pregnant by him?" And they always
Well,
lie and say no.
didn't you know that before you got pregnant the 4th time? How about that? The 7th time? That's the one that got me about the one with 7 kids.
Yeah.
When they asked her about being with her father, the kid's father, she was like, "Oh no." I think she said he was a cheater or something. And it's like, you didn't know that after the 7 kids?
Yeah.
Really? Shout out to Malika. Says, it's funny a woman can act like a 304 and indulge in debauchery for a large part of her life, but not want to be called a 304 and be accountable for her actions and behavior. Shout out to Dead Set. What's good with you, man? Says my grandmother. Oh shit. Man. He says my grandmother was a jump off to a Jewish man for nearly 30 years. Wow. Wow. Yeah.
Oh boy.
And this is my problem with
Uh,
even with folks who really are pushing to repair the Black community, but they're doing so by only focusing on the men. It doesn't work.
no.
It doesn't work. If you got 2 broken legs, you can't put one in a cast and then not treat the other at all and then expect to run a marathon. It doesn't work. If you're gonna critique one, you got to critique both, because the dysfunction is communal. It's not limited to Black men.
No.
And this is why we talk about misandry, because even men have gotten comfortable with only critiquing men. We think it's some kind of masculine thing, but it doesn't work like that. The dysfunction that we're dealing with in the Black community is not limited to Black men by any means.
Yeah. Our only means of handling Black men in the Black community is the same way that our mothers handled us, right? Either sign language, which is a disrespect, or being physical.
Mm, mm.
Either you're gonna whoop him or you're gonna whip him, right? There's a difference. Okay, you can either beat him up or you break out that belt, and or shame him.
You
That's
know
all
what? They're gonna force me to go here, man.
Okay.
They're gonna
All
force
right.
me to go here. Somebody brought this up earlier in the broadcast about what I posted
Right.
on Facebook. So this is a post from Quiet Noisemaker. It says, if you don't fear women after reading this, we need to run from you. And the question asked is, you knew you were a hoe when?
Yeah.
And then from there, you started to get responses, right? When I dated my male bestie and pretended to be just friends around his girlfriend. When I slept with father and son. When I dated 2 brothers plus their friend, right? When I drugged the main dude just to sleep with his best friend in his room.
Mhm.
We carried him to the floor, then used his bed. Now, I'm not doing all of this, just to arbitrarily attack women. What I'm trying to show is that the human nature that we're comfortable criticizing in men
Yeah.
is just as available in women. And I think, if anything, when you pretend it isn't there, especially long enough, it becomes more and more toxic when
It
it's void of criticism or public analysis.
the ones that are honest will tell you women cheat more and better than men do.
Oh, we about to go through this. Yes. It says when I effed my side dude at my main dude's place, he was working night shift.
Yep.
Come on, man.
Yep.
Let me see. I think this one is cut off. Let me see if they give the. No, it's cut off. So just the top of it, it says, when I had the second guy, and perfectly acted like a virgin, utterly tightening my vaginal walls that he couldn't penetrate for about 15 minutes. And I relieved it a bit at this time, and it cuts off. I didn't get to see the whole thing.
In other words, you act like your body count's low.
Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. There's the top of it. He could barely penetrate it after 15 minutes. The whole process was about 40 minutes till today. Dudes still think he deflowered me.
Yes.
And won't let me rest because I dumbed his without a formal breakup.
Yeah. It dumped him. Dumped him. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Dumped him. I'm still an old school teacher, so I might correct things 3 or 4 times before I can actually read it. So social media is a beast for me because I'm like, there's no punctuation, there's no capitals. I can't read none of this. But anyway, so you got the next one. Maine came for the night, had sex, then few minutes while, I don't know what that is. What is that?
In this,
Yeah. Then a few minutes while doing blank my side. Okay, so I guess he came. The main dude came for the night. They had sex. A few minutes later, the side dude texted her and said he was outside. Told Maine that I'm gonna go take a shower quick and come back. Went, opened the water, took the towel, wrapped it, and sneaked out. Locked the bathroom. Went for a quickie in the car.
Yeah.
Came back and pretended as if I'm done taking a shower. Went to bed. Main dude never noticed. God damn.
Mm-hmm. He didn't care.
Come on, man.
He didn't care, And most men don't care, man, enough to actually follow a chick out like that. Women will, because they care.
But it isn't even about, to me, whether he cared. It's just the fact that we're oblivious to the fact that women do this, and then we don't know how to hold public court about it. But we can do this all day with men.
Mm-hmm.
We got questions for Nick Cannon, who, from what we can gather, is taking care of all of his kids and should be able to indefinitely. We got all kinds of smoke for him. But this kind of behavior, and the thing about it is, we're not talking about a given celebrity. These are random women that are writing their stories in. And we got nothing to say. Nothing. I married a man, cry after he planned a surprise champagne party for me, only to find out I'm dating his friend too. He cried literally the whole night and kept on asking me how many times his friend effed me.
Okay.
He hadn't hit it yet.
Oh boy, he thought he had a virgin, huh?
My boyfriend drove me to my other boyfriend's place. He believed I was visiting my best friend. Fast forward, he came back to pick me up later that day. When we got home, he actually, oh, come on. See, I told you this. You and I talk about this privately. When he got home, he actually,
yeah.
I can't, y'all do what you can with that. And then said, you're really wet today. Oh, Jesus. God. Damn.
Your worst nightmare, huh?
Oh, my God, man. I'm not even a Christian, and you got me in here calling Jesus out. Are you serious? This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about.
And she probably orgasmed just from that.
Oh, man. Anyway, man. So this is the stuff I'm talking to. And actually, let me see. And I think Growth Talk Kofi, I got this from his page. So I was causing trouble because Growth Talk be putting stuff out, boy. If y'all ain't familiar, go check with Growth Talk. A brother put a couple of posts in there too. Let me see if I can try and read this one a little bit. It says, I absolutely could. As a woman who has been a side chick before, is also married, and has also had a few side dudes within her marriage, and is currently in a side relationship within her marriage with a side dude who is also married.
Yeah.
What that girl chooses to do with her body is not my business and has no bearing on the things that I seek from a person with friendship. That doesn't mean that she can't be an amazing girlfriend, sister, mother, worker, etc. One has no bearing on the other, in my opinion. Accompanied with anyone making a decision does not define them entirely as a human being. I don't judge people based off of moral codes or what. Well, maybe you should. I'm just saying at some point. I'm not reading through the rest of that, but I can see it on the screen if you want to go through more of it. I'm just saying, man, this is the kind of stuff we're talking about. And how we can be completely oblivious to that, I have no idea. No idea.
We don't want to believe, because I've had 2 videos taken off of YouTube because of that. Because the women don't want to admit it, and men don't want to believe that they actually do.
Right.
So that's why it works so well.
Man, I shout out to Dante. He says not only that, but those children may have been from other races of men, mostly white and Hispanic. Oh, he's talking about
the 1.2 million. Yeah.
Shout out to Lewis. Says chill out, Dr. T, before boys find it. That's it. See, but that's the thing about it, man. It's like if you're talking, if Boyce is criticizing men who are just arbitrarily attacking women because it's Friday, and that's one thing. But if you're talking about men who are telling their stories, who are talking about female humanity, and can't get that into discussion because we're chivalrously standing on protecting women and hyper criticizing men, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't hold water, and the reality of it is young men are not going to follow you. So if you're doing this content to get women to give you money, you'll get it. But if you're curious about the next generation and you want to know why younger men, most particularly alongside grown men, are starting to push back from your content, that's because you're not telling the truth. And and young men are even experiencing this in middle school and high school, and you're going to sit up here and tell them that they're not experiencing it?
Oh yeah.
No, they're going to start to withdraw from you, and then you're going to start having conversations about why young men don't want to, don't want to get up and contribute. Why should they?
We're already having that discussion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Since COVID, we've been having that discussion for a while.
Yeah. Shout out to Randy Reviews. Appreciate that. But that is the discussion because nobody wants to deal with the reality of what we're doing with the next generation. The next generation, I don't care how you classify them. You can call them names. You can say they're the greatest thing walking. I don't care how you classify them. The more you lie to them, the more you're not able to speak the truth, the more you don't have the capacity to speak the truth about what's going on both sides of the gender dynamic, the less they're going to follow you, the less they're going to listen to you, the less they're going to be engaged in what you're doing ongoing.
Yep.
That's what, it is what it is. So yeah, you can have a large audience and have plenty of women that love to hear what you say because you make them feel good, but that's okay.
That's why they do it to earn money.
Yeah.
Pander. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I have little respect for pandering. So
I call it hotepping for women.
Shout out to Guy. Says Strom Thurmond, Black Daughter, didn't call him deadbeat, spoke well of him. Oh shit.
Oh yeah, well the white baby daddy is a whole nother story.
Yeah. Steven says pieces of the puzzle. The one thing black females will not talk about is the book every black man needs to read. Indeed.
Indeed. They are who we thought they were. Yep.
Yeah. Appreciate that support, Steven. Shout out to Leon. He says great grandmother is equal, if not better than 23andMe in Mississippi or Alabama. God damn. AKA that's Leon. Stop, look at her. That's New York cousin's granddaughter. Okay. God damn.
Yeah, and that's funny to protect their own seed. Okay, they will actually investigate if that child doesn't look somewhere close to the rest of the family. They'll go attack that woman. That's for sure. They protect their own their own genetic line.
Yeah. Well, and their own future resources too. Let's be real. The more you acknowledge, the more you got to pay for, even after death. And sometimes the women in the family get real protective of the family resources because it directly impacts them.
It sure does. Yep.
That's not a bad thing. It just is what it is. So yeah. Shout out to Wrench Turner. What's good with you, man? Appreciate the support. Says K-Ron says mothers and aunties intentionally raise their sons and nephews with a blind spot for women's tendency for nefarious acts.
Yes, they do.
And weaken their sons' ability to develop a lexicon to call them out their bull. Yes.
Yes, they do.
Yes.
Yeah, the women in the family will actually help them cheat.
Yeah, they will. And this is what I need people to understand about the way my channel has always worked. I don't look when it comes to the negatives that women are capable of. I talk about them because they're not talked about in so many other circles. And I don't talk about them just to arbitrarily attack womanhood or women or females. I do it because you can't have a balanced discussion until you acknowledge what both are capable of doing. And if you're not going to talk about it, I'm going to at least put it on the table so we can't pretend like it didn't occur. However, when men do something negative, I've heard people say, well, why don't you talk about that? Because everybody else in the world is talking about it. if a man commits an act of assault or lies about something or who isn't talking about, particularly black men who do this. I don't avoid it because I don't see it. I'm like, everybody else is talking about it. I don't need to add to it. I'm trying to cover what's not dealt with in the scales. That's, BGS knows I'm all about the scales. So
yeah,
I tip the scales on what's not covered. What is covered gets plenty of attention as it is. Mississippi Delta says, I went to a party. Well, do you two women or white women?
White women, yeah.
White women were complaining that their sons were not dating at all.
Yeah. They've given up. Yeah, I mean, you have a young Gen Z. So
well, yeah, and one of the things I was talking to a homegirl of mine I used to work with 20 years ago, and she has a son that's damn near 30, and she was telling me he's checked out. Yeah. He's checked out. He doesn't want to work. He doesn't want to, he's content to sit in a basement and play video games. Yeah. And a lot of the time we have those discussions, we're comfortable with just, pushing it off on him as an individual. But even this is one of the things that even Richard Reeves is talking about. They're starting to notice that this is becoming an epidemic, if you will, on one level or another, of young men young men to young adult men who are basically absolving themselves of contributing.
Yeah,
participating.
30%, and this is something I read in Japan. Right, 30% of Japanese men under 30 have not even been on a date, much less had sex. A date.
Yeah. Well, we're seeing similar percentages of men here who haven't had sex.
Yeah,
the young men are withdrawing, and the old methods of just denouncing them are no longer working.
Right.
Because none of that changes how young men behave, because you've not bothered to talk to them. You've not bothered to ask them why. You've not bothered to try and understand why. You've just jumped in and piled on with dissing them. And of course, pedestalizing the women yet again. And it's just making it worse.
And when you talk to those young men, they tell you exactly why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah. What's the point?
Yeah.
So on this side, we go ahead.
They're saying the juice is not worth the squeeze.
No. But at the same time, there is something that young men can get out of life. And that's what we talk about on this side of the fence, where we're saying, look, you may not get directly from society or from women what it is you're looking for, but there are other ways to get it.
Yeah.
And if you come over here and commune with men who found other ways to find what they're looking for, you can benefit as well. You don't, the strategy you're using is, I see why you're using it. It's more effective than people want to give it credit for.
True.
Because it's scaring the hell out of society, even though people don't want to publicly admit that. But there are other ways for you to thrive as a young man. There are other ways for you to find dignity, for you to find resources, for you to find, status, respect, whatever it is you're looking for. You can find it. You just have to break the script. And there are a bunch of brothers over here that can show you how.
Yep.
So shout out to a Split Jim, says PhD dues. Almost finished with your book. Thanks, Dr. T and BGS. Hey, man, appreciate that.
Hey, shout out, man. Thanks for purchasing the book, man, especially.
Really?
Give us to review it when you're done.
Oh, man, I'm digging that setup he has in the picture, too. That's nice.
Don't go peeking into the locker, Doc.
Oh, man, I got something similar already. Anyway, shout out to Steven. He says, we're a generation of men raised by women. I'm wondering if another woman is really the answer we need. Tyler Durden. Damn.
Fight Club, yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, the gynarchy is bigger than just the black community.
Yeah. Shout out to Amal Dunbar. I think that's Dr. Dunbar's brother. Hope you're well, man. Shout out to you. But let me go ahead and put this back up.
Number 2, I think that a father has to be a demonstration of what I call AIM: accountability, integrity, and mastery. Those 3 things. Yeah. My father wasn't any of those.
We got real clear definitions, don't we? Go ahead.
Her father was not that to her. He was married. You're the let's put it, the bastard child of a side chick.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be nice. Illegitimate child of a side chick, right? So he didn't take care of you, but he took care of his own children within the wedlock.
So you're saying that what did they say? His real daughter would have had a different description of her father. Huh?
And normally at the funeral, they say, "Well, we had a wonderful life, and we had everything, and he was doting, and he came to our recitals and all that kind of stuff. Wonderful father to them, not to her."
And I don't mean the real versus unreal kids. I was thinking about that D.L. Hughley piece where he was like, "We his real kids."
His real kids, yeah.
he said, "Your father didn't even know your mother." I said, "Damn." DL was killing me with that.
Mm-hmm.
But no, man, but you're right. There's a difference in that behavior. And a lot of it too comes down to the nature of the relationship between the mother and the man in question. And nobody wants to talk about the way that difference could play out.
Yeah.
Over the life of the child.
Everybody ain't like Rose, where she demanded that Troy go over and take care of his child.
Well, Troy was going to do it anyway, though. But I hear you.
Yeah.
Shout out to Mr. Tolbert. He says PhD tax as well. Thank you for that.
Heard that. Appreciate you.
So anyway, here we go.
First one that you touch on, because I get this quite a bit personally, because as we all know, I've been blessed. I'm financially well off, and that instantly that becomes the conversation quite a bit. It's like, because he can just, it don't matter if he can buy houses and G-Wagons and all of that stuff. It's about that doesn't make him a good father.
But didn't I say in the first session that we did that fatherhood, that women look to men to what they can do? What can you do? Mm-hmm. So it's not that that's where you've been reduced to. That's what's expected of you.
Right.
Because there are many men, I've worked with a lot of them, who want to be a father to their child, but because they can't write a check, they're not allowed to. Let's have that conversation, okay? There are many men who want to be in their children's lives, but because the woman is so... and this isn't, not a condemnation of my sister women, but because she's so bitter and disappointed and angry, upset because she didn't make it with the man, that she will deny the child his father. I've seen it. This is not something somebody's telling me, nor is it a judgment or a condemnation.
Because it happened to you, did it not, Iyanla? But you won't blame your mother.
Right. She has to have qualifiers before anything she says might be received as criticism from women. Did she raise any such qualifiers when critiquing the deadbeat dad or men in general, or men as fathers? No qualifiers, because you don't need qualifiers in a gynocracy to critique men.
Yeah.
But she's been blasted in the past by other women for being critical of women. So I'll at least tip my hat to her for being willing to say what other women won't say. But I'm just observing, even in this respectful back and forth interview, notice the nuances of behavior, even body language, when it comes to critiquing men versus women, and what we're allowed to do versus what we're not.
Yeah. The gynocracy is pretty cruel, man. They jump on each other.
Cordell asked the question. Appreciate the support, Cordell. He says, "Do you see future men turning to X dolls?"
They already have.
They already are.
Most of them are not black, but they already have. In fact, that's one of the more popular things. They have whole brothels with nothing but X dolls.
Dead Set says, "I can testify to that one." Which one are you talking about, man? And let me know if you want to come up, Dead Set, because I always need to hear your opinion on some of this stuff. Shout out to Eric. He says, while black women cheer the oncoming extinction of the South Korean society by refusing to have children, they haven't had the foresight to think about how somebody's got to pay for these girls. He quoting Hulu. Damn. Damn. Man.
Eventually, when they get 50, that's the problem. Somebody's going to have to pay for them. And there won't be any children or young people actually help these old ladies out.
Yeah. Shout out to Dante. Not a condemnation of my sister women. Yeah, those are the qualifiers, right?
Yeah.
She, and we know why, because she came under quite a bit of criticism.
Yeah.
Pointing out that women were out of order. Now you can say men are out of order. You can call men everything under the sun. Which is one of the reasons that I think a lot of men have just checked out on even debating and arguing.
Yeah.
They've checked out. They just leave.
They've accepted it's always Jermaine's fault.
Right. Right. Dad said says he got time. Let Now, this is specifically for Dead Set. I'm gonna put the link in there, Dead Set. Come on up. I always got to get that cool ass voice in here. Fucking jealous of his ass,
My black pill brethren.
Yeah, man. That's one of the only men in the world I'm jealous of, man. Him and that voice. No, because my father has that voice. I'm like, man, I wish I'd have got that shit. What's up, man?
Hey, how you doing?
You see what I mean, man? God damn it. Cool ass voice.
Brother, I can't help it. It is what it is.
woke up at 13 and that's what came out.
What's good with you, man?
Oh man, I'm still here.
All right, that's real.
Mm-hmm.
That's real. You said you could identify with something. What were you talking about?
Oh, testifying?
Yeah.
Oh, the mother basically withholding children and all that other ish.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Because I mean, y'all already know I'm already going through it, so it's just like it's still in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Shout out to Donnie. He says Vanzant did a show with Oprah called Daddyless Daughters a while back. She used qualifiers even then.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Right. I might have to look at that.
She better unless she wants to be burned at the cross.
There it is. And it's happened before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, black women, wasn't there a situation where she and Oprah, she was, kind of pushed out after her show? I know there was a couple instances where she and Oprah went head to head, but black women were critical of her, and she had to work her way back into Oprah's good graces, I think, after her show failed or something of that nature.
Okay, yeah.
In regard to and because she was becoming more and more critical of black women's behavior. Mm-hmm. I think black women wanted to see shows where she would go in on the men for making women unhappy or whatever it was.
Yeah, I think that before she got her show, I think that's where she started going in on the men. The thing is, it didn't help the women be better. It's like she started going, dealing with women and their trauma. In fact, that's where with the sign language actually helped because she figured out why these women were actually doing what they were doing. Okay. That's like she always went back, back a generation. What did your mother do? What did your mother say? Why do you think this way? Why are you ashamed? Always goes back to her mother because guess what? It went back to Iyanla Vanzant's mother and her grandmother.
It's the same thing we started to see when women started coming into red pill spaces. It's the same thing we started to see when non-red pill men would come into these discussions. It would start out with a condemnation of men. And then eventually over time, and again, Kendra G is a perfect example. You started to see these women observe more and more. You can't have one-sided conversations about dysfunction and completely dance around what the women are bringing to the table.
Because you're not going to.
Go ahead.
Because you can make them. What did I say about women versus men as far as the discussion? Your mother makes you feel better. Your father makes you better. Okay, and you have to have that kind of parental energy, the tough-minded coach, actually makes these women better.
Yeah.
I think men need a little lesson too, though, and that's this is the type of preacher that I like. 25:19. All wickedness is but little to the wickedness of a woman.
That's true.
That's right. And that's in your Christian Bibles, folks. So if y'all hadn't read it, it's right there in plain English.
Yeah.
Damn.
So y'all were warned thousands of years ago.
And
don't get me started.
And women have a very loose moral code.
Yeah.
It fluctuates.
Well, it fluctuates, right. With feeling, with moment, with context, with environment, it fluctuates. It's not necessarily, as fluid when it comes to men, especially when men begin to operate as a collective. It doesn't, what stands as a pillar or what a law of sorts, we tend to stand on it on one level or another. As you said earlier, BGS, there's a code.
There's a code, and women cannot enforce anything in a society.
That's true.
Yeah.
Shout out to Inspired Truth, who joined the Onyx Brotherhood. Welcome. Appreciate that. Shout out to Herb Saint. Says, my friend watches Kiki Palmer's podcast on the show. Iyanla was very gentle with her and never corrected her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some of you brothers are going to have to explain to me how y'all watch this stuff because I just don't have it in me to even listen to them.
Brother, I understand. I'm doing a 2-part because I don't do this kind of stuff very often, but
Yeah, and I think in the first part, I think Nick was talking. Maybe it's in this part where Nick was saying how much he admired his his mother and his grandmother and his great grandmother.
I was in the last,
That was
the
the
other
last,
clip.
and he talked about how they were matriarchs,
Yeah, yeah,
and
and he's cheerleading it. Yeah,
he was cheerleading. They were here. They were his heroes, but were the men in his family heroes to him?
you know what changes, and I don't think it would, because he wouldn't even mention the men.
Yeah,
He wouldn't even mention the men, including his father, in any kind of positive light.
yeah,
And it doesn't. It's not even about positive or negative, but we find reasons to value people we do, even if they're negative. He
yeah.
didn't do either with any of the men, so he was just keyed into the women. But what I think also hits men when you're in a gynocracy is when the women you're dealing with that you've separated in your mind from your mothers, your grandmothers, your aunties, when they start to do things to you,
Mm-hmm.
especially with your kids,
Mm-hmm.
and you really begin to sit back and look at your mother and the other family members, and you say, "Wait a minute, that's the same shit that happened to my father. That shit
Exactly.
that happened to my uncle, or that guy she was dating. I didn't know him well, but she did the same thing to him. Maybe these guys are not what I thought they were." You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It takes that kind of moment.
When it becomes your turn, so, oh, this is what they were talking about.
This is what they were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what Patrice O'Neill talks about when he's like, this is one of the things that forces you to become a man when you see your mother
As your
as your
father's.
father's woman, your father's girl, or whatever. It's
Yeah.
because he's saying when your girl starts to do the same thing your father endured, but you only saw it from the vantage point of a child
Right.
that saw his mother crying
Yes.
or his mother upset. You see it inherently as a negative on your father's behalf.
Mm-hmm.
But when you experience it, you're like, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much here that I can't explain to a 5-year-old son who sees his mother yelling at me.
Mm-hmm.
You have no idea how dysfunctional she's being in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And she gets to control the narrative once the courts help her push me out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I always talk about the box of receipts. You may not like your father. I'm not exactly saying he's a good person. Sometimes if you go sit down and have a conversation with that man in a beer before he leaves this earth, you might find he's got a box of receipts that you need to have.
Yeah, and you will learn, whatever you fill in the blank of the first name. Your mother's as a woman is her first name versus your mother, and those
Yeah.
are be two different people. Can be.
Yeah. So if your mother's name is Claudia, you might need to get to know Claudia. You mom as best you can.
As best you can.
Figure out who Claudia is.
And when you figure out who Claudia is, a lot of things will start to make sense.
Yeah. And if Claudia is acting like, the woman I'm dating, then it's like, or at least if the woman I'm dating is acting like Claudia did in the past,
yep,
I need to step back and think this through differently.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this from a different lens.
Yep.
I don't even have my mom as listed as mom in my cell phone. I got her first name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You've gone through that change. You know that process.
Yeah, I know that process. No, she is not. She is Mary. Last name.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it doesn't need to be a negative. It doesn't mean that we're talking down women. It just means you got to get to know the woman that you were raised by.
And then you can forgive your father, and by forgiving your father, forgive yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Which doesn't absolve him of all that he did, but it does point out that you're probably unaware of all your mother did. I mean, these are not, again, we've been raised to treat these as one-way situations that men are the cause of, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But that does not work on a mature level.
It turns out he had very good reasons for what he did.
Yeah. Even if leaving is what he did. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the things I went through with my own parents. Because my mom still comes to me talking about what my dad did, because my dad was, he was a Mac. He was a serial cheater.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, it was years ago, she got really pissed off with me because I just told her that ain't had nothing to do with me.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I was concerned, Dad was there. So that was between y'all two.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, I know it is. I'm just trying to give you some understanding.
You're trying to give me your understanding.
And in other words, a high value man can chase options, and he exercised options, and you stayed and had a baby for him.
Had four.
Oh, damn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But how many knew he was a Mac beforehand? Right. So the way we get these stories, You know, I had several kids. We were great. Everything was great. We had the white picket fence, and Bambi was in the front yard, and birds were chirping. And then, oh my God! All of a sudden, he had an affair.
He had an affair. All of a sudden, he became this cool Mac character, womanizing.
Out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. Yeah.
But then when you sit and have a conversation with him, and you find out not only did she knew that he had several women in the first place, she jumped in both eyes open with both feet.
In fact, she competed by having a baby.
Exactly, because my aunts, they all knew who he was.
Yeah.
So,
well, you know, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and you know, they were young. So on top of that, because my mom got pregnant at 16. So, you know, she was competing against older girls.
Yes.
And, you know, I don't know what it is. She thinks I don't see that. But it's just like, look, I'm in my 50s. Come on, you can't run this mess by me.
The thing about it is what you just pointed out, what I was going to get to, though, that sometimes what's happening is that she's competing with the expectation of being able to win him. And if she's not able to win him on very specific terms, then he becomes the worst monster you've ever heard of.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But that's the thing. And I've experienced this too. When a woman gets with you, you can tell her up front. You seeing 13 women, you can tell her that. If she has expectations of changing your mind, you'd be surprised what she'll sign up for. But when she doesn't get what she wants, she gets to control the story for the next 18, 20, 30 years to her child.
And you become a weapon instead.
You become a weapon.
But you're giving away game now, because that's how you control multiple girlfriends. You manage expectation.
Manage expectation.
That's what you do.
You do. Yeah.
Real talk. Anyway, shout out to Eric. He says, Doc, it's a whole other experience when your daughter recognizes the dysfunction in your ex and comes to live with you. That's an interesting combo. Damn.
Wow.
Damn. That's a game changer, though.
Tell me about it.
But you know, I can tell you, coming from a family of women, you know how they talk about that after she's left and she goes to live with you? Well, she's just a daddy's girl and he's brainwashed her. There's never any agency in terms of whether or not these kids actually just saw how you behave and decided that you were out of pocket. That's never an option. It's always recounted one way.
How many uncles does she have to meet before she catches on?
Yeah. Shout out to Inner Light Radio. What's up? Says, if you're a man whom is not tethered to general American values, it will be impossible to sustain a meaningful relationship with an African-American woman who's joined at the hip to the USA.
That's a fact. So the Leviathan is very strong.
Yeah. Okay. Let me
see if I ever get through past my second book. My third book is going to be a doozy.
We got to get you to these books, man. I'm gonna stay on you, man. You got to publish, man.
You saw the title to that third book, right?
Hey, man, I'm with it. I want to see it. You got to document it, man. Yeah. All right, here we go.
So it's a very complicated matter. I don't think a father is deadbeat if he's not allowed to be in relationship with his children. But if he has the capacity, if he has the ability, and he has the responsibility, and he doesn't, too many of our young girls are, ravishing themselves with drugs and sex and all kinds because daddy never tucked them in at night. Too many young men are using a gun, and their penis as weapons because daddy didn't give them another model to be. So for me,
and we're not threatening, we're managing expectations with the penis, okay?
Exactly.
Well, but part of the problem here too is that she doesn't discuss whether or not vaginas can be weaponized. That's not an option.
That's a given.
Well, no, but see, it's when you're raised in a gynocracy, it's a given you're not familiar with. You can't usually articulate. You may even experience it and not be able to verbalize it. But she can verbalize the weaponization of the phallus. She can verbalize that. You have classes in the university that are fixated on this conversation. I've never once heard a conversation about the weaponization of the vagina.
Vagina is so terrible a weapon that you don't even have to touch it to feel the consequences of it. Ask
Yeah.
Brian Banks.
The possibility of the vagina.
Yes.
Yeah. I've heard my daughter's grandmother talk about when she was a baby about her vagina, how much she's gonna be able to control men with it.
Yes.
So I've
Absolutely.
heard. Yeah.
Absolutely. But let's also, I'm gonna take you back, BGS. This is 2018. Right? This is a piece I wrote on my blog. Right? Why was Gen X fatherless? A brief statement on why Black men left the family in the 70s. Right? And I start with these number of bullet points. Now, I ended up having a debate with, well, that ended up being a whole, listserv of economists about the Black family. And basically, one of the things I pointed out was that when we're talking about the weaponization of the vagina, we don't add to it the institutions that also operate on her behalf. It's not just the vagina by itself. We're talking about policy. Not being a part of the military draft, the differential treatment and welfare access, family court, birth control, Title IX, right? Access to the system in K through 12 where over 90% of the teachers are female, need-based financial aid that sidesteps men, especially if they've served time, versus women that aren't serving as much time, and the difference in access to higher education that comes with. Right, affirmative action differences in terms of Black women or women in general getting access to it. Black women serving double minority status. These are just the bullet points that I was covering to give context to where Black men are at the beginning of the conversation. And so I'm trying to say, when we talk about the weaponization of the vagina, we're not just talking about how manipulative women can be or how they can use your desire for sex or your desire to please women, because that's how you've been socialized in a gynocracy. We're not even talking about just that. We're talking about the institutions at her access that she can use. If she wants to falsely accuse you and she can call the police and you could be the one bloody and bruised up, but they still take you away to jail. That's what I'm talking about. Right? Those institutions operating on her behalf only make it that much more impactful in terms of what a woman is able to do to you. I mean, I can ask Dead Set right now. You've been dealing with court for how many years?
Since 2021.
It should not be this difficult for you to be heard. But for some reason, and you've gone far beyond the average brother in terms of trying to make sure you were heard. Tell us a little bit about what that process is in terms of what men have to do for access to their own children.
Okay. And I'm just going to give you the bullet points, the short version. First and foremost, if she lays an accusation on you, even if CPS rules it out twice, they will still take your children. And nothing will happen to her. On top of that, if you have to go to a visitation center, they're going to treat you like a criminal just so you can see your children. So you're going to get searched, you're going to get patted down, they're going to look through all your stuff, and they're going to make all these rules. The good thing about it is, if you know anything about contract law, like which is what I do, you can sit there and argue with them, but they have to follow those court orders, and it's a contract. And since it's a contract, you ain't got to do nothing they tell you to do. And that's how I roll with that. I just recently found something out because I was looking up Taharka. There's something called the Taharka Doctrine or the Taharka ruling here in Maryland. Interestingly enough, I ran across Taharka Bay versus Tariq Nasheed.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
But under the Taharka ruling, number one, it allows hearsay when the child cannot speak for itself, but that hearsay usually comes from the mother. And number two is that it reverts back to the tender years doctrine. It's a tender years exception, something that a lot of people don't know about. So when you think that, okay, all of this evidence is on my side, but why am I still losing my children? Take a look and see where the court has implemented tender years. It's all part of policy.
Yep. Going all the way back to 1641? Something like that.
I don't know.
Patterns patch to the eye. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, patches to the eye, that went back. Oof.
Yes.
Yeah, that goes back to Rome, I think.
Basically, 1640. The the court of the court of
The Court of
chancery.
Chancery. Yeah,
Chancery.
that was in England.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me pull this back up in here.
Mm-hmm.
Man is a man who doesn't provide for his seed when he has the responsibility to do. A man who doesn't walk in his truth. Who doesn't walk in his truth, whatever that is. I don't care if he's a bus driver, a grave digger. Let your children know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Did her mother walk in her truth? I'm just curious.
We don't know.
Through your presence, not through your pocket.
Again, we talking about the village. There's a certain idea in tribalism where it was associated to where, like, well, you can have as many children as you can take care of.
Yeah,
Or
that's not tribalism. That's culture. And what if, I don't know, I can make it up any way I want to since I'm a guest on your show and you invited me here.
Indeed.
What if you are the reincarnation of some great king?
Come on, Doc, cook on us. Cook something.
Okay.
Let's
What
cook.
if you are, and you've come back to work out maybe some things that you didn't do in that lifetime,
Right.
but you did do in this lifetime. So you come with the throne, you come with the wealth, you come with the capacity, you come with the
Now you're
village.
talking my talk. You're making me
Okay.
feel better in
Well,
this
now,
session.
I'm just saying, what if?
I'm sorry. This is my problem with reincarnation. Nobody's ever a janitor. You know,
I know.
I'm sorry. Everybody's a king and a queen. No, what if you were a janitor? That was it. How about that? The
I'm
moment
fine
you
with
could
being
actually have those kind of conversations, then I'll listen to you. But I don't know. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Oh, well, I'm fine with being a reincarnated Pookie. As long as I get reincarnated.
You here, huh?
Exactly. I can do what I want once I'm here.
Oh man, everybody's a king and a queen. I'm like, stop it. Just stop the shit.
I don't know. So, maybe instead of being upset or, people they looking at, well, thank God he's got the money.
Right.
Thank God he's got the platform.
Right.
We know those kids are going to be taken care of and provided for. I don't know what your soul is working out. And those kids chose you.
Yeah.
Whatever their soul needs, you're going to give it to them. You and their mothers.
Well, what I can tell you my soul is working out, and so I can be a little revealing in this moment, is I do struggle with the idea of, not the idea, with the purpose. Just like even what you said was so powerful. It's like, there's a reason I'm in this position. And
the reason you have those children.
right, that's even altogether. It's like, because I want to do my best. And when I find myself in my therapy sessions and the times where it does get scary, is walking in my purpose is my day-to-day goal. But when that purpose is thrown off, specifically in fatherhood, I get concerned. I get, because it's not even about the outside chatter. It's not about, people's opinions about me. I clearly could care less what people actually think about me, but it's more the things that I often struggle with is, and I think somebody put it this way, it's like, when your daughter asks you why, what is going to be your answer?
Why what?
I mean, why so many children? Why weren't you monogamous with mommy? Why did I choose the lifestyle that I chose when I had the ability to choose a more traditional lifestyle, or even was in a traditional setting?
Is that in integrity with who you are? Are you in integrity with yourself? When you wake up in the morning, do you say, I am, Nick Cannon, and this is what I believe in, these are my values, my this, and you're human, you're going to stumble, you're going to fall.
Right.
I'm Iyanla, I am the great mother. Yeah. And my job is to facilitate the evolution of human consciousness. One mind, one body, one life, one spirit at a time. But if law and order doesn't come on soon, I'm going to smack the taste out of somebody's mouth and punch him in the throat.
Right.
I need some law and order,
right,
okay, because I'm human.
Right,
okay?
right.
Are you in integrity with yourself? And my father, who was married, had 3 children with my mother, and then went off and had 5 children with somebody else that I met one day on the corner on the way to some. I didn't know people from a can of paint, and now all of a sudden I got brothers and sisters, and we never did. But because he wasn't public, no. Do you know how devastating that was to me? I was devastated.
That's when your mother didn't tell you.
Exactly.
Uh-oh. I was going to ask the question because she gave a scenario a moment ago, or he did. You go ask your mother, what was it? Why wouldn't you? No, ask the father, why weren't you consistent with just my mother? Does it ever dawn on people that maybe your mother wasn't exactly faithful? I mean, I'm just curious. Is this a thought process that people engage in when you want to vilify the father based on what you've been told? Has it ever dawned on you that your mother may have been unfaithful? Does that ever even enter your consciousness?
It can't.
Yeah, that's like when I posit the question, like if there's a domestic dispute, and the first thing I ask is, did the woman provoke him?
You're not supposed to ask.
You get attacked instantly.
Right.
What provocation can he, for him doing exactly what he did? I was like, well, if she talked too much, maybe she deserved to get her teeth knocked down her throat.
Or if she hit him with something or attacked him with something. Let's not act like this. And this is one of the moments where your own experiences transforms how you begin to see your past. Because when your mother is faultless, your father is a monster, and yet you see the same qualities in your girl that you see in your mother, but your girl physically attacks you. Your girl physically, assaults you. Your girl lies on you and accuses you of things that aren't true. You know what I mean? When you start to see these behaviors in this woman who operates much like your mother did with your father, but you don't have your father who's willing to tell you the devious stuff that may have taken place, do you step back and say, okay, maybe I'm missing something? Maybe I'm not, I haven't added something to the equation that needs to be added. This is the importance of men being able to recognize that your mother is a woman.
Yeah.
She's human. She's not this super goddess queen mother, which is how even if we don't use that language, this is how we're socialized to see motherhood. Even in the larger mainstream society, motherhood is venerated.
Yes.
But we miss out on the human. So now this is another part to it. When you get spaces where men are finally able to speak, which is something that we haven't had outside the barbershop, really ever, especially in a platform that people can access all over the world.
Right.
Of course, it's going to seem like we're overly concentrating on the most extreme negative, but it's not necessarily what's taking place. What's taking place is you have this space that has never existed where men are finally able to compare notes in a way we've never had before. And now we're in an era where people are documenting, even on video, the behavior of women that we don't even always have the verbiage to articulate.
And we're always shocked.
Yeah. A lot of what you're hearing from men is years of bottled up shock and frustration. And in many respects, the first time it's ever been stated aloud about their given situation. Go ahead.
No.
You got to say something? Okay. But anyway, this is the reason I focus on these kind of elements, because I don't hear them enough, but I am starting to hear more men speaking up. But we got to continue to do this, again, not for the sake of unnecessarily denigrating women, but for the sake of having a real conversation about what's going on. And until you have a real conversation, I don't know how you can heal shit. I don't.
Well, I think that if we don't do something about this, the human race is going to be in trouble. Well, at least society, is going to be in trouble, because we're stopped procreating. I mean, that's what all of this led to.
Yeah, because it really at its foundation, because people are not willing to speak truth.
Right.
What happened? What took place? Right. Why is it that this story only comes out, and it's the same damn story? That's the thing I find interesting about it. When you listen to enough people tell you the stories of what their mothers told them, it's the same story.
It is the same story.
He's a monster. He's an abuser. He's this and that. I ain't heard this much abuse in my life. But then when you sit down and talk to men, you start to find out that there are other nuances to the story.
Yeah.
And sometimes abuse was never even a factor. I've even caught women add the word abuse, and it was never a factor or feature in the story until, they learned that it was something that got people's attention. But, when you get beyond it, you find out there are other things that are going on. And then you start having relationships as a young man, as you're coming up. You start having kids. You start dealing with women who have had your child. And then you start to notice, well, this seems similar to the stories I heard growing up, except I know I didn't smack her. I know I didn't do X, Y, and Z to her. And yet she's telling other people the story much the way my mother told the story to me.
Exactly.
I have become my father in her stories, but I didn't do half of what she's talking about. And the other half, she had more to do with than she's ever stated. Well, if this is happening to me, then what may have happened to Pops, this man that I've hated my entire life? And maybe he wasn't a Rolling Stone and a player. How many men do you know of that went on and had another family and stayed faithful? My dad has been married to his second wife for 45 odd years.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, 45 years.
Yeah. And Nick Cannon the same way. Nick Cannon is the exact same way. When his mother and father couldn't work it out, right? His father moved back to North Carolina for school and got married and stayed married.
Yeah.
Well, we can call that being in a relationship long enough to become the villain.
Exactly. And what I want people to do, brothers especially, is okay. We've been taught to see fathers as villains. We've been taught to see each other and ourselves as villains. What I'm saying is put that on pause, and really just get to know the man, for better or for worse. I'm not saying he's innocent. I'm not saying he's a great man, but he very well could be. I've heard just as many stories about a deadbeat dad who just had a bunch of women as I've heard stories that men moved on and had new families that were, you know, they weren't dysfunctional. They were actually very functional families.
I did a video on a TikTok, right, where this very wealthy black woman was actually relating a story from her, I think it was her aunt, right, where her aunt's mother had worked and saved up money and bought a different house and bought a car that she hid. And one day when Pops was at work, he packed up everything and moved the kids to a different house.
Yes.
And never came back. But if you let them tell it, Pops would abandon the family.
Yeah. And they'll add little adjectives to it. Like, and these will even be the elder women that are friends of your mother, right? They'll be telling her story and they'll say, yeah, she moved the kids. Y'all were all gone. Your father came home to an empty house and she wasn't having any more of that shit. And you'd be like, well, what shit? Oh, well, just ask your mother. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
This man didn't come home from work to an empty house.
Yeah.
And this is all you're telling me. I've never got to ask this man anything. All I know is he's a monster. She had to survive him and move on like it's a Mary J. Blige song. And now we're living in heaven somewhere because we got away from this monster.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not saying it's impossible. See, this is the difference between, you know, a lot of us and how feminists articulate this. Yeah. I'm not saying that's not possible.
And the thing is, when I scroll down,
but I'm just, let me finish. All I'm saying is, I'm not saying it's not possible. What I am saying is there are other scenarios as well, and they are not entertaining any of them because they want to stick to a strict narrative that makes one the villain and themselves the hero. But go ahead.
And that's when I scroll down in the comment section, it must have been like maybe at least 40, right? They said, well, my mom did that too. And my grandmother did that to my grandfather, just on and on and on and on and on and on. It wasn't just one isolated incident. It's a very common practice.
That's why I always ask the question, at what point does an anecdote become a real statistic? You get enough of these stories, you're gonna have to start counting them.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, everything's an anecdote at some point.
Yeah, until they pile up to become a survey.
Yep.
Part of the problem we have too when we're trying to have these discussions in popular culture is that we have what I call core narratives, right? So when you talk to a woman and she or a feminist in particular, and she starts to talk about abuse or SA or something of that nature, the core narrative much of the time that she has is, you know, an innocent woman, guy busts in with a knife, and you know, it's this kind of dynamic. She's arguing that. So the moment you question what she's saying, she looks at it like you're attacking this core narrative, especially if she herself may have experienced something like that. But you may have a whole different core narrative. You may have a narrative where you've been falsely accused and may have lost your job, right? Or known somebody that's experienced that. So you have a different core narrative. So a lot of times when people are having these arguments, we're not actually talking about the subject matter and using the evidence that we can. We're actually comparing and contrasting the core beliefs we have, the core narratives we have about this thing, this issue, SA, abuse, whatever it may be. And we don't ever get to the core narratives. And I tell people straight out, I fully acknowledge that these things have happened to women, but I also acknowledge that other things have happened to men that you will not acknowledge. And that's why the conversations reach loggerheads and don't tend to go further, because I'm not going to let you get away with this one-way narrative while you won't admit that there are other stories that men have endured that you refuse to acknowledge. I'm not going to let you do it. I've seen too many cases where this has taken place and these men have suffered dramatically and they've gotten no kind of mention in the public sphere about what actually took place with them. I can't allow that to stand. But anyway, yeah. So here we go.
To know that I had brothers and sisters that I had never seen or known, and then when I get famous, they wanted a check. Stop it. Okay?
Right.
Devastated. And now he's dead. No explanation because he didn't live in integrity. He didn't tell the truth. He lied to your
Okay, that's bullshit.
Yep.
How did he lie?
Well, but the other thing is to say, and I hear this in spiritual circles too. If somebody is sick or they've died, it's because they were dishonest. They did X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Everybody dies. Everybody dies. And as far as sickness, BGS, you and I have known great men who've been sick. Yes. But this idea that we're going to make sickness and death a demonstration of how, ill or negative a person is, notice how it only happens one way.
Yeah.
Because if her mother has passed already, did she die because she was not walking in her truth? Did she die because she was manipulative and exploitive, and as you say, she lied to you? Is that why she may have passed? All of a sudden, there's silence. So so I noticed this in spiritual circles. This person was sick because they were evil. Really? Because a lot of people get sick.
Shoot. I take great comfort in the fact that the bad shit that I do, it ain't gonna end up being nothing. All I gotta do is not get caught.
Can't That's it. Nowhere, man.
I know you can't. You can't. But feral cats, you can't train feral cats, man.
You can't train, man. But I'm just saying, coming out of being in the conscious community, that's one of the things I remember hearing a lot, and especially something that was targeted at people that women in particular were mad at. Right? And all of a sudden it became, well, he had cancer because he's negative, or he had this. It's like, but you had cancer. Your mother passed. Your sister died. Was any of that because they were problematic? Oh, okay. So it wasn't in that case, but it was in this case because you're mad at them. All right, man. I'll tell you this much: I've seen a lot of evil people live a long ass time, and I've seen a lot of good people die. Tell me what that means.
That means I want to be the former.
God damn.
Hands on the just and the unjust, right? Equally.
Hey, there it is. There it is. There you go.
Children know each other?
Yes, they do.
All of them know each other?
Yes, they do.
Are you accountable to yourself?
Right.
Do you have elder men, brother men, your psychologists, whoever? Does your grandmother know who you are?
Yeah.
Is what you do on a daily basis, I'm talking culture here now, is what you do on a daily basis, do you make your grandmother proud? Are you doing anything that you were ashamed for her to know?
Nope.
Have you been able to take your children to see their great-great-grandmother?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking accountability, we're talking integrity, personal integrity, cultural integrity, familial integrity. Now, if you can master your sex life, I think you'd do a little better.
I'm trying to figure that one out, Doc. I don't know. Let's touch on that, because what is it about men?
What'd you say?
I think he's doing quite well.
Hey.
Because I don't think this idea that he has to supplicate himself to her.
Exactly.
I don't like this, because right now she is pedestalized and he's helping her to, he's putting her on a pedestal before him on his own show. That doesn't sit well with me. That's his house.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Look who done finally come through. Shout out to Black Uru. He says, we're supposed to believe that Iyanla's mother and the mothers of her siblings didn't know about each other and the children. Why weren't they also responsible for telling the truth? There we go. There we go. That's that hammer. All right. What's up, Black Uru? Okay. All right. Damn it. Come on.
In my position, who have I always call it, and this is the downfall of many of us, the access to excess.
You're human.
When I know if I was just, a truck driver from San Diego, California, my lifestyle would be different. Specifically my sex life would be different.
You think so?
I mean, I'd probably still be Adam the way but it probably wouldn't be in the same sense that I wouldn't have the access to
You'd have the access to the excess when it comes to the sex life.
Right.
The punanis are just running rampant all over you just see them everywhere. They just throw themselves.
That is true. So let me put it like this thing. I would say that my means in the world in which I've created for myself gives me the accessibility to be, you know, promiscuous and unapologetically. And I don't know, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, there's a father of many, and even, you know, still living the lifestyle that I'm living, I don't want it to be my downfall, but even the perception, and again, I don't want to focus on what people think, but even in my day-to-day process, it's definitely limited my bandwidth. It's definitely altered my focus at times. And even times, so much, even there's been times where different psychologists and practices have told me that I need to be celibate, or practice abstinence to, you know, there's one time people thought I was sex addicted, but it's like, it's not that what I learned that I was addicted to. I was addicted to pleasing people.
Yeah. I was going to say the very same thing. And now, see, as a woman,
hold on before I let her go on. As a woman, pleasing people. Now, BGS, you and I talk about this offline a lot about Black men being raised to please,
right?
And the impact this has even on how we define sex and sexual pleasure, how we even interpret sexual pleasure.
Yeah.
For many, and I've talked about this for years, especially for Gen X and older. For many men, the act of sex itself is about her being pleased, her having orgasms, her squirting all across the room, her passing out during sex. That is the definition of sex for a lot of men. It's about her pleasure.
Yeah.
Our pleasure comes secondary. And I've had brothers tell me it wasn't until they started dating internationally and sometimes interracially that they began to explore sex in regard to pleasure in ways that weren't directly tied to her getting off. And it was a liberatory experience for them to experience sex and enjoy it and it not have to be about her only. Right. And this is something we see happening as young as junior high, high school, where, you know, young men get talked about if they don't please her well enough. And women experience that too. But talk a little bit about pleasure and this whole notion of pleasing women, please.
Yeah, basically that's where we're trained, okay, about giving emotional labor, giving resources, and basically, as far as sexual pleasure, okay, that's what we're known for, right? And you know, even coming from the time you turn, coming to puberty, you're told that, you know, you're not a real man and you're not a buck, you know, you're not a, you know, that kind of a top-notch alpha dude unless you can actually please that woman, you know. You every time you have sex, your reputation is actually on the line. Okay.
Yeah.
In other words, if I don't knock this out of the park, okay, then she's gonna come back and tell my friends that I wasn't any good. I'll be ridiculed, you know, for the rest of the semester or for the rest of my life, because they said, remember, I think it was what's her name, the comedian. She said that about a guy, right? About she had rented the hotel and she got the guy in and she kicked him out because he wasn't any good.
Yeah, I want to talk about piggyback on some of that too, because having had women internationally, especially the Japanese, the sense of dutiful pleasure that they actually really love and engage in.
Yeah,
that's what a lot of men are missing. And even when I dated down in Brazil, it was the same thing, because I remember the first woman that I dated, the first thing she did was she took me into the shower and then she bathed me. I didn't have to do nothing. And then she, well, I'm not going to go too much into that, but it was, she was there for me.
Yeah.
And she enjoyed that.
You know, whereas we engage in dutiful pleasure towards our women.
Yep.
Yeah. Tell me, Dead Set, in all honesty, was there ever an awkward moment when you first were introduced to those differences in other places, or was it a smooth transition for you?
It was awkward at first, because, well, I was married when I first started doing it, so you know, I had only dealt with American women, and my first time out, I basically abstained for about 2 years. And then afterwards I said, well, you know, let me start sampling the natives.
Yeah.
And so once that happened, once I got over the anxiety of their responses, because, you know, it was like, no, it's okay. Oh no, I'm fine. And it's just like, okay, all right, then let me just go ahead and kick back.
Yeah. Yeah. I've talked to a number of men who've gone through that, and they usually tell me the transition doesn't take long.
No.
As long as they're consistently engaging women from other cultures or whatnot, but they do usually say that that early point is some effort because you're so used to how you've been programmed here. And
Yes.
even down to how you within your own body process what pleasure is, the very definition of it
Mhm.
is, her being pleased. That
Mhm.
transition of not necessarily, and it's not about her not, being pleased anymore, but that's not the only priority or definition.
Mhm.
And so that taking time for men to process, and often you find that we've never reflected on that as
Mhm.
men.
Yeah.
We were told what sex was. We were shown what can happen if you don't meet that standard.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? When I was in high school and college, the standard then was, if you could have sex for over 2 hours, 3 hours,
Mhm.
uh, how many orgasms she had. I mean, we would actually tell each other how many we would count them. Think about
Yeah.
that. The
Yeah.
act of sex itself, you are literally counting her orgasms just
And
to make sure.
and then that puts notches on your belt and bricks to your manhood. Okay.
Yes,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but
It,
but
your manhood's
but
built.
but women will define that as simply a matter of men's ego,
Mhm.
but will not acknowledge that this is a kind of it's a cultural system at play where
Mhm.
men are learning that their value is framed around whether or not they can bring her to this point. Starfish sex was a reality for a lot
Mhm.
of brothers as young, especially when they first started having sex, because the idea was she lays there, let's see how you perform.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this determines your value. So when men engaged in that behavior, it wasn't purely a matter of ego, it was a matter of social worth that was tied to a cultural environment that defined sex in regard to her pleasure and
Yeah.
defined his worth in regard to what she said about the sex
Yeah.
afterwards.
And you got to figure out her sexual peaks. You got to figure out her sexual spots. You got to figure out how to talk to her. You got to figure out what her kink is, and without any help from her.
And then that's the thing. Yeah, you can't have a conversation
No.
about her kink. You're just
No.
supposed to figure it out.
Figure it out. Yeah.
If she has to explain it, you've already failed.
You already failed. Yeah. You're supposed to know.
You're supposed to know.
Man, you just walk in there with your dick out and say, "Turn your ass over." That's it.
And sometimes that works, and
Yeah.
sometimes you're a
That does.
predator.
You're a
Yep.
predator.
You know what I mean? But see, even that is emotional labor and
Mhm.
emotional intelligence, right? To look at a woman and figure out what turns her on and
Mhm.
not go too far to where she's traumatized,
Mhm.
not go far enough to where she's bored. All of these subtle dimensions men have learned to master, and some men have failed at dramatically, but we've
Mhm.
had to navigate it
Mhm.
while pretending like none of this exists at all.
Yeah.
And there's so many nuances to this that I'm surprised we don't talk about it more, but we're so used to it, we're enmeshed in it.
Yeah.
But there's a certain advantage when it comes to Western men taking this overseas because the women over there are not used to it from their men.
Mm-hmm.
So we tend to serve them a little bit more. We tend to manipulate them a little bit more. We tend to be more active in bed.
Mm-hmm.
At least this is what I've been told from the women that I've dated overseas.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Yes, they was like, oh, I love American guys. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you guys are kind of, active. We do things. We're attended to their needs, and that's
Mm-hmm.
part of our conditioning. They're not used to that with their men.
No,
Yeah.
they're not.
Mhm.
In fact, I think one of the things I'm gonna play later on is this interview with a black woman and a Latina. Okay, about how they see black men, and
Mm-hmm.
almost down to the T, exactly what you're saying. Her sister's going off how she's been hurt, how black men cheated on her, and how they were no good, and they brought trauma. And then I asked the Latina woman, no, okay, he's respectful, and he loves. He's our men put a we're beneath our men, with black men. No, they respect us. Um, they respect their mothers, even when they cheat. They don't expect us to be happy about it. That kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. And that sister was hot. Okay. How dare you?
Mm-hmm.
How
How
dare
dare you
you?
see his
How,
value?
how dare you see his value? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Here we go.
Was on the other end. My promiscuity resulted in me having the children without the father. As a neglected, abused, sexual, physical, emotional. I too was promiscuous as a young girl, and it resulted in pregnancies that didn't come to fruition, and ultimately 3 children that I did have and raise. And when I began to dig into it, a couple of things. Number one, I grew up in a time, in a period, and maybe it's still today, I don't know, where sex was a demonstration of love. And I was so unloved. I was just unloved. I felt unloved. My father died when I was 30. He committed suicide. My father never in my life, I have not one memory of my father kissing me, hugging me, or telling me he loved me.
It's always Jermaine's fault.
And
Always Jermaine, yeah. I thought it also interesting when she talked about, being abused and learning to interpret love in regard to sex, and then, being hyper promiscuous.
Right.
Look, here's the thing. So we know that women can say these things, and I applaud her for being willing to say it, because most won't, in terms of putting it the way she put it. But women can say these things, and we have a way of interpreting that and saying, okay, these were crimes committed against her. That's sad. We feel bad. She knows this. She knows that we have a framework in place at this point on how to interpret female vulnerability. But think about male promiscuity in relation to early trauma. Think about how many young men have been molested but did not have a way to articulate that and be understood, right? And think about how that affects, grown men's behavior, all in all, right? You can't say in this culture, as a grown man, I was molested, I became hyper promiscuous, I had multiple relationships and children with different women because of that trauma early on. You can say it and people can understand it intellectually, but people don't have empathy for it because it's something we reserve strictly for female vulnerability. We don't think about that in terms of male vulnerability. We still think of males as being agents, being responsible for their behavior, even when they're 5, 6, 7-year-olds. And ultimately they deserve whatever their fate. So you can stand up here and say you experienced all the same things Iyanla did, but at the end of the day, suck it up and keep walking.
Yeah, your boy. Yeah.
But when it comes to women, and she's in her 60s, 70s?
70s, yeah.
She can say that as a 70-plus-year-old woman, and we still have the framework in place where most people's reactions is going to be, oh, man. And I'm not saying you shouldn't feel bad for her, but I'm saying notice how we don't have that for a grown man, 30 to 70, who could stand up and say, I experienced the same things. I did the same thing she did. She's talking about Nick having 10, 11 kids. She just said she had 3 and lost others coming out of this particular legacy of trauma. How come she's not regarding herself to be on par with the criticism that Nick gets in terms of quote unquote promiscuity? She regarded it to a point, but there's still a difference between her and Nick and women and men in this the whole discussion on vulnerability and whatnot. So that's just one of the things I observed. I don't know about y'all. But.
Yeah. I observed something else too. And this comes from basically my reading of something that I saw when I was reading Kabakov. If anybody who don't know who that is, that was the writer of Lolita, the Russian guy. And as you read that story, and I seen this in real life, in fact, my ex-wife's mother told me this about her own daughter before I left Texas. And that's that the things that you're describing that women do, especially the...
You bored?
You're borging. Uh-oh. Did we lose him?
I think he's still there.
Am I still here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go back.
Okay.
30 seconds.
Okay. Well, basically, after reading Kabakov, and he was talking about the girl Lolita, you learn to find out that her dysfunction flowed from her mother because her mother was highly dysfunctional. So while we talk about the things how boys are affected by the things such as molestation and all types of aggression, especially the whoopings, because I think they were just brutal. Something I don't like seeing, but Black people tend to celebrate that type of thing. We often, we'll say the girls were victims over this stuff, but we'll usually attribute that blame to the father and not the mother. And that's the issue that I'm really having here, because it's like my ex-mother-in-law told her daughter, she said, look, there's going to come a time where you're going to be jealous of the relationship that your daughter has with her father.
Mm.
And she
Yep.
saw that while my ex-wife was pregnant.
Yeah.
And talk about prophetic.
Right.
Here I am.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
Uncle who raised me, who I lived under his roof, who, you know, was a functional alcoholic, who probably said
Wow.
10 words to me in his entire life. You know, I love you, being one of them. So when he raped me, I thought that was a demonstration of his love. So I was on the other end of being promiscuous, A, wanting to feel loved, and number two, because I was shuttled around to so many, my job was to make people happy, to please people. And as a young, vulnerable, black, red, brown girl with absolutely no woman demonstrating to me who I was and how I was supposed to be, I you know, just gave myself away. Then so by the time I'm 21 and understanding this, I'm totally unworthy. I'm dirty, I'm filthy, I'm broken, and nobody wants me. So the first thing hobbling along on the crutch, I married it. To bring worth and value to myself. Oh joy, oh rapture. So if I don't speak that, however, nobody knows it. I've written about it.
Right.
Because Nick, my love, my beloved, the only reason people are talking about it is because you're public. It goes on every day. I was a victim of it and I lived it. Here's the thing. Do your work. Heal it up. So that when your daughter asks, when your son asks, not these freaking crazy people on social media who probably, like I said, pay attention to your life so they can neglect theirs.
Right.
You want to be able to say to them, I can say to my granddaughters, I spent more than half of my life trying to get my daddy's approval in the bed with other men. I can say that.
And how many men seek female approval through sex and have never articulated it to themselves, especially those who are not loved in their own families, or at least not shown, demonstrated love.
Yeah.
Right?
All black men do. Okay. From the very beginning. That's how we actually get self-worth for ourselves, you know, through sex. And money doesn't even do it. You know, sex is always the great equalizer, right? How well we do, how well we please women. How many women can we have at one time to be pleased?
Yeah. But she's talking about a dynamic, and again, I'm not saying that women don't experience it. I just find it interesting when we can have these conversations. This happens in my classes as well. We can have these conversations and it's only understood along female lines. When you start to talk about men experiencing similar things, and some things are different, there's still this framework where people don't understand simply because a man is on the experiential end of it. It's only understood in terms of how women engage it.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that I'm here pushing for. I'm pushing for men's experiences to be understood, most particularly by men. Because if you've had these things happen and you can't articulate them with the clarity that you just heard her do, and be received in your environment the way she's received, not to say everybody agrees with her, but they understood her and they knew how to respond when she says these things she experienced. If you can't speak your experiences, there's already a problem. But even when you can, if you can't be received in the environment you're in the way she was, there's another problem. And that's kind of what I want to get to at some point. I want men to be able to articulate themselves using the vocabulary that we've established because nobody else gave us one. But also I want us to push for an environment where we can be understood, even if it's just amongst us. And one of the things I notice we tend to do is attack each other out the gate as men before women are even in the conversation. So anyway.
There's something that's sort of bothering me here, though, because as Nick Cannon is explaining his story, I'm thinking about the biological imperative and what human beings really are. Because as far as I'm concerned, outside of, the definition of a father, he has a Western definition of it. That's one of the issues that I'm having here. Granted, we are in the West, so yes, we're going to have a Western, but he's a wealthy man. And as far as I'm concerned, when a man is going out there and, well, he clearly knows his children, and he's having as many children as he can afford, then as far as I'm concerned, he's living out his biological imperative. And I don't see anything to shame about that.
Mhm.
So I'm sort of not with them, because I think, in a way, as I watch this interview, I think Iyanla's just egging him on.
Okay.
And that's sort of leaving a bad taste in my mouth, but I will have to listen to it more closely just to, get past my own biases here.
Well, let's see where they go with it.
My father never kissed me. He never told me he loved me. So any man who told me he loved me.
Isn't that a trip, though? Did she just sound like a 5-year-old girl in that moment?
She did. She did.
A 70-plus-year-old woman, she sounded like she was 5 in that moment. That tripped me out. BGS, what else were you going to say on this? My bad.
What I'm saying is, but guess who she never blamed for all that? Her mother.
Yeah.
She didn't even know what her father even looked like until she was 16. And she had been passed around from one family member to the next, but she never blamed her mother for that. It's her father's fault.
It's father's fault. The same father that committed suicide when she was 30. But we're not going to talk about what he went through or what may have gone on, or what demons he was fighting, or what experiences he may have had that brought those traumas about that he may have experienced. None of that is relevant, because he didn't hug her and tell her he loved her. But we're not going to talk about her mother's role and her grandmother's and her aunties, the women in her family that were participatory in a dynamic with married men, and they knew it, and have no place in the criticism. Anyway.
Oh, joy, oh, rapture. Let me go home with you. Okay. Right. So I don't know what that version of your story is, but yes, the need to please people, the need to feel loved, just to feel it. People will say you're a sex addict. Maybe you're a love addict.
I can say that. So I call myself a fearless romantic. I just dive all the way in. Forget hopeless. I'm fearless with it.
But then it comes things like, and forgive me, the issue of worth. Let me tell you why. Because if you know you're fertile, if you know you love yourself and love women, you love sex, I love grits. I don't need them every day. It would be too much grit. So when do you say, okay, this is too much, even if it's down to a condom?
Self-regulation?
Mastery. Accountability, integrity, mastery.
So, but I do wear condoms.
On your head?
Not enough. Not enough.
Where do you have it at?
No, I'm telling you, contrary to popular belief, I always say this, every child that I had, there was a conversation about it before. They were intentional. The people that I had children with, I had relationships and connections with in a way that it wasn't, I don't have one of those baby mama situations, somebody I just met, or oops. Like, I think Wendy Williams one time called one of my kids an oops baby. It was never an oops baby. These were, and it's people who know me know these are people that have been in my life for a long time. These are people who value and wanted to be amazing mothers and now are currently amazing mothers. And I'm proud of every aspect of it. And the ones I just was playing with, I wore condoms with. And that goes back to even what I was saying about the lifestyle in which I lead. I've been doing this since I was a teenager. There's an abundance of
punani
being thrown at me. So I think, it's
because women are attracted to the power.
Right.
It's the power. It's the.
I think I'm kind of cute too, Doc. I'm getting older.
I'm trying to keep my cougar over here. Sit down.
Okay. First of all, and y'all, just to state the obvious, let me know if you want me to stop it because you have something you want to say. But that cougar moment, that was interesting.
Why?
Yes, it was.
That was interesting. Because I'm thinking when you think about Dr. Phil or some other man or whatever who's having a conversation with a woman.
Yeah.
And they framed this discussion early on about him being on her couch in terms of therapy in some form.
Right.
It just happens to be televised or put on video. There's still a trust. You would not survive long as a male therapist of any sort. And you even make jokes like that suggest a flirtation. But women can do this very casually and not blink.
Yeah, they can.
Your practice might be over based on that joke alone. She starts talking about my inner cougar. What? Well, go ahead, y'all. Wait, you jump in on this.
They've been given room and license to do that, so it is what it is. That's part of the being a female. They can do it.
Yeah, she'll tell a 5-year-old, "Look me up when you get grown."
Yeah, she
Oh
would.
man,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. But see, this is the importance of the era, because we've always heard that in the Black community, but it
Mhm.
hits different when somebody gets it on their smartphone
Yeah.
and puts it on the Twitter or TikTok, and you actually see grown women saying this in front of little boys.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
It's different,
Oh yeah.
I think, but
Well, some of them actually engage in it, so let's call a spade a spade.
well,
You know?
well, I can tell you, when I hit 17, some of my mother's friends, they even asked her for permission
Mhm.
to come to
At least they asked.
She was
Okay.
about to pimp you out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least they asked.
Yeah. And I remember when my mother told me, she was like, "Oh, such and such asked me if she can roll up on you." And I looked at her like, what?
And, how do you feel about it? It's okay if you're okay with it. I'm okay with it.
Man, that's I didn't get that. That threw me. I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute, what?"
Did she cuss her
No,
so in other words, she was with
no.
it. She was with it. So.
But let's think about that though. So, you both have daughters, right?
Mhm.
So we're boys for years, and your daughters hit 17. And I
Mhm.
say to either one of y'all, "Hey man, I might want to get at your daughter. We good with that?
Okay,
Is
well,
that
yeah.
even appropriate
No,
between me?"
no, I'd say, what kind of flowers you want on your at your funeral?
Well, y'all are different because
Well, let me qualify this before you go on to dead set. Let me qualify it with this. I've not only known you for years, I've known your daughter since she was 5. And I ask you if I can basically run up on that at 17. How do you respond to that?
I'm telling you, at
He's black
17
belt.
years old, this is the black stuff coming out. There
Okay.
is nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, but are you good with it?
I won't be good with it, but if I can't, I won't be good with it. I'm going to go ahead and concede that point. However, there's nothing I can do about it. That's a battle that I'm going to lose.
There
If
may
she's
be
interested, yeah.
Well, I didn't say she was interested. I'm
She
saying
ain't
I'm
interested.
asking you for permission, or I'm letting you know I'm interested. This is your boy who's known your daughter since she was in diapers. Like, I have boys that have daughters that, I've known them since they were born.
Mhm.
That's not only is that not something I've ever thought about, it was never something I would even remotely bring to my boy. Like, I would expect to be down.
In other words, and this is something because I have adult daughters, right? And I've been in a position where I've had friends with, that were older than me that had adult daughters. They had daughters that were coming of age, right? And there's a sacred trust that I have with you and you have with me that our kids are off limits to each other.
Mhm.
I understand that part, and that's one of the reasons why I don't have males around my children. That's the bottom line there.
I knew there was a caveat somewhere, but the thing is, there's a sacred trust. In other words, with my good friends, right? When my daughters and my children are in your care, you're their father, and vice versa. So if I have to escort your daughter or do something with your daughter is like my daughter.
Right.
Yeah, I'm pretty solid on that. But again, like I said, if it ain't my brother or some family member, it ain't happening.
Now, if she does something behind my back, that's on her. Okay,
right. That's true.
But let's take it to where we saw women do it. We saw women actively flirting with 5-year-old boys in front of their mothers.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Okay, now they deserve to get punched in the face.
Well, see, but that's what I'm saying. That's the equal scenario. So we gonna flirt with your daughters and talk about how good she's gonna be in bed one day. This girl in diapers.
Oh, hell no.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, and I can see if she was 17, that's different. But in diapers, no.
Yeah.
But but that's the framework, right? And that's why I said she's 17, but we may have known her since she was little. This women are able to do this in ways that we excuse it because we've learned to excuse women in general. Her little comment about being a cougar would not be acceptable. She would lose her practice if that was a man talking to a woman, especially in a public environment where he's providing some kind of therapy. It's not acceptable.
He would, but
that
exactly would the women get a pass?
Yeah,
that's true, because that's not professional at all.
Especially in that kind of setting. But somebody earlier, and I put the comment on the screen, they said that that actually something similar took place early in her practice with her first husband. I don't know anything about that, so I can't really say. But if it does, it's just I mean, if you think of a male counselor who marries a former patient,
Mm-hmm.
at worst, it's just not a good look. Or I should say, at best, it's not.
Yeah.
It's kind of like professors who have sex with their students. Sometimes some do it, some don't, but it's never a good look when it becomes public anyway.
Yeah.
You mean like the weirdness of Woody Allen?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because you're seen as being in a position of authority where you are responsible for these people, and if you're taking advantage of that authority, it's seen as exploiting the vulnerability of those you're that are in your charge. There's actually a form of rape involved in that when you start talking about people who are incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we see like the guards in a prison.
Oh yeah.
Get charged with very specific types of sexual assault if they engage in sex with prisoners. Even female guards in male prisons. It's the female guards who are considered, at least by law, to be the ones exploiting the prisoners because they're in a position of authority. So culturally, we say, oh, those men took advantage of those female guards. But in terms of the letter of the law, the guards are the ones taking advantage of the person who's incarcerated if there's any sex going on. So anyway, there's all those dimensions that we kind of throw out the window when it comes to women. And we underestimate how exploitive and predatory some women can be in these situations. So, if you have a field like psychology that's over 90% female, I personally believe this stuff happens far more than not, and we just don't talk about it.
Yeah, we've seen it a lot. We saw it a lot in recent years with the teachers. That's definitely
it's being reported.
Mm-hmm.
It's been happening. It's just being reported.
Yeah. It's been happening, but it's finally being reported. Absolutely. But we haven't heard as much about psychology lately. In the last few years, we've seen therapists who really hate Black men and have been, very misandric in their talking points. But we haven't heard too many stories yet about them actually having sex with their patients, or or their clients, or whatever.
I think the ones that hate Black men are one having sex with their clients. Personally.
Well, I mean, one thing that I've always been adamant about is to, like, when I went to go to see a urologist and they ask you, do you want a male or female? It's just like, no, I need a male. Because there is no way I'm letting a woman work on my junk unless she's pleasing it.
Okay. Shout out to Steven. He said, when I was in college, I knew a younger 17-year-old brother who was being controlled by a Black woman in her 40s. And I got the feeling from him that his family knew about it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very common.
A lot. Yeah. But I can tell you, if a 40-year-old man is going to have issues dealing with a 40-year-old woman, 17-year-old boy, 99% of the time has no frame of reference for how to handle a 40-year-old woman and what she can do to him.
Of course not.
You have a select few that may be able to have that kind of innate maturity about them, but for the most part, the mind games a 40-plus-year-old woman can run on a 17-year-old boy ain't even fair.
Oh yeah,
ain't even fair.
Yeah, as long as you don't keep him too long, because that will switch. In 10 years, that'll switch.
Yeah, here we go.
But no, I say all of that like I just always have been.
But you're powerful,
right?
You are powerful. You are self-aware. You have a generous heart. You have an absolutely, and believe it or not, from me, and I'm speaking now as elder mother Iyanla, not the cougar. You have a sweetness and an innocence about you,
right?
And that is really attractive. I can imagine
right.
to just any walking punani coming down the street.
Right. So again, like you said, I gotta have the aim, the accountability, the integrity,
and the mastery.
I've
never heard you say, "No, that's not my kid."
Oh no, I've never said
okay,
that.
That's what I'm talking about, integrity.
Yeah.
Are you doing the work, or are you serving in the world in the way that you believe would honor your grandmother?
Right.
Are you that's integrity.
Right.
Do you do what you say, even beyond your human stumbles and stuff? I've never heard you call a woman publicly, I don't know what you do privately, that's not my business, out her name.
Never.
I've never heard you demean or demoralize even another brother. I haven't heard it. Now maybe it has happened.
Yeah, no,
so
that's
these
not,
things
that's not
to
my
me,
character.
right?
Yeah.
These things to me are integrity. My integrity is different. Your integrity. But if every man and woman take aim, who are you accountable for? A man who is not accountable to himself, to somebody, is a danger to himself and everybody else. Even if you're just accountable to see, my grandmother washed floors and toilets to feed me and my brother. Native American woman. Got up 5:30 in the morning, took the train to White Plains and Yonkers. Came home 7, 8 o'clock at night with bags of scraps from the white folks' table as she fed us. Everything that I do.
Where's your mother?
Has to honor Rissy Harris Holloway.
Say that again, sir.
So where's your mother? Your grandmother took care of her and her brother.
Yeah.
Notice how there's not even any explanation about that, right? Not even a statement.
Yeah.
She was working. She gave me to my grandmother because she got a job elsewhere. There's no statement about it, but the father gets all kinds of smoke.
Yeah, he didn't know she was alive, probably.
Excuse me.
Everything. How I be in the world, how I hold myself, how I speak, how I dress, has to honor Rissy Holloway Harris, who scrubbed white folks' floors and fed their dogs and scrubbed their toilets so that I could sit in the front of the bus. Oh, I will never disgrace her. That's my integrity.
That's powerful.
And what happened to grandfather?
And then, too, if you can point to multiple generations of absent men, we're comfortable dismissing that as deadbeat. We're comfortable doing that. We never raise question, why? Could there have been anything in these women's behavior that contributed to that? Especially if you're raised in a gynopotestal family structure where you have multiple households that are led by women, and these women were raised to see men as disposable and conditional. He's okay for semen. He's okay for fun, maybe even a little bit of protection. But at some point, this is my house.
Yeah.
Just as my mother taught me to have her house. Her mother, my grandmother, had her house. And grandpa may have died giving her that house. But the point is, my job as a mother is to have my own house. And these men can come and go, but they have no say.
They have no say. Exactly. They have no say.
And we almost ensure that those men either leave or are pushed out. And the story just becomes about strong Black women raising their kids on their own.
Exactly. That's why it's always emphasized that if there's going to be any help, the daughter will get it.
Yes.
Because she needs to be powerful enough to actually call her shots in case that man goes left.
Yes. Yes.
Well,
you got something you want to drop on this dead set? Go ahead.
Yep. Men are the givers, women are the takers. I am both the giver and the taker.
You are Shiva. Okay.
I am the Kwisatz Haderach, damn it.
God damn.
Oh boy.
I gotta make light of it because if you don't, I might just pull my hair out.
Oh, I ain't mad at you, man.
Yeah.
I ain't mad at you. Here we go.
And the things that I have to master, are well, we won't talk about some of those things.
Like I'm on your couch today, Doc. We ain't gotta get in all your business.
Do you understand?
Why not? Why not?
Yeah, because she's Queen Mother, and he respects her. And he respects the hierarchy of the matriarchy.
He's falling on his sword. This is what we are taught to do. We save them from themselves.
He said very, very similar thing about his grandmother.
Yes, but he's protecting her reputation, as with the women in his family. We learn to fall on our swords as a regular part of our behavior, and these women learn to wait for that. They learn that they know you're going to do. And you notice she stopped.
Yeah,
she didn't continue down a line that might embarrass the women in her family, or at least we'll find out. But I don't think she. I think she stopped.
No, she stopped.
Right. So it's a dance that we learn to do. They expect it. We've learned to give it. They do not provide it for us.
Yeah.
And the critique tends to still go one way.
But one thing I want you to notice, Doc, notice that he didn't judge her, and she's getting really, really comfortable in telling him stuff that she probably shouldn't tell him.
Yes.
Notice that.
And the flirting started after that.
After that, yeah.
Now, I've been in a couple situations. I've had some women of stature that they come out the pocket when you provide this kind of framework that Nick is providing, and he's protecting her from her image being besmirched. But this shit happens. This shit happens, and it can be a 30-year gap or more. It really still happens.
If he was with it, she would be with it.
There we go. Mm-hmm. If you're behind closed doors, whether it's therapy or just a discussion, it can go down.
Mm-hmm. He'd be rubbing her feet in her dressing room.
Please, brother. I am trying not to get in trouble in this piece, but I will
shut up.
I'm telling you, from employers to professors to administrators, I done seen a lot of shit. I'll just put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She threw it out there twice, so
yes, she did.
Mm-hmm.
We have to start, first of all, let's evaluate. First, people don't have no business up in your life. This social media thing is not our culture. We sat around in circles, whether you're black or red or brown. We sat around in circles and shared stories that elevated one another. That's our culture. We're an oral tradition. You understand? But if we're going to start evaluating each other, let's do it according to our cultural norms and not the cultural norms of somebody else. What if you are the reincarnation of a king, building a whole village? That I don't know that, but I'm looking at how you're holding, how you're wearing your crown. That's what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at what you're doing with the lower portions on your body. I'm looking at how are you wearing your crown?
Eyes up here.
Right. And when the king made a mistake, he acknowledged it.
Indeed.
And we don't have to beat you, flog you all day long, take your stripes and put your tail between your legs and get your... But we're destroying brothers out here, evaluating them without a cultural context for who they are and what it is that we do. Now, some we need to smack around a little bit, but you know,
that's the accountability.
But who is the elder council? Who is the egg bay that we call? If you really run amok, just show your booty all over town. Where is the elder council that's gonna hold you accountable?
The councilman, the board that we all have.
Because we've dismissed and demolished a lot of our elders because that's what the news media said. We get 5 minutes of them, you know. But if there was an egg bay, if there was a council, communal, national, whatever, and they get to say, because let me tell you something, if Baba Harry Belafonte, Baba Sidney, you know, even on some level, you know, Reverend Jesse, pick up the phone, the minister. Brother Nick, we need to see you next Tuesday.
Okay, so I remember when I was younger, in terms of hip hop, it was people like C. Dolores Tucker. Right?
Oh yeah,
that stood up and said black men were acting out of pocket. What committee or council stands up about Sexy Red?
You mean the one that supports her?
Right, because it ain't gonna be. We ain't seen a council yet to tell her that this is not how women act. Come over here and let's get this straight. You haven't seen it. So when she's talking about the absence of the eldership, as far as I can tell, women have never gotten silent about managing men's behavior. And it's particularly women that I've seen outspoken about men's behavior. When it comes to women's behavior, neither men or women are you know, I hear individuals, but I don't see a council in position that's willing to check women's behavior. But men, I mean, think about Snoop and all them guys, you know, that were doing all of that, you know, all of that gangster rap and hip hop. How many different groups of black women admonish them? Snoop won't even go there now.
Yeah.
There are things that Snoop rapped about he will not rap about now. He won't even talk about in casual conversation now. Those guys got browbeaten by different collectives of women that silenced them. Where is that group for women that are out of pocket? Y'all tell me.
They're not our color.
Oh, shit.
Oh.
Because Miss Sand is the one that needs to silence them, you know.
But all of that used to flow from the patriarchy too.
Even though we never had one.
We never had one.
Well, okay, even in the matriarchy, right, in the matrilineal setup, right, okay, the women do control that behavior. We used to. The women control that behavior about sex, about how you look, you know, because my mother she'll be 85 this year, so she comes from that generation, right? And trust and believe, my daughter's wearing something that's not approved, she hears it. Okay, she's dating a guy that's not approved, she hears it. Okay, there's nothing that she can really do about it, but she hears it. Okay, and they checked each other about. I mean, everybody's heard about the fast ass girl, right?
Oh yeah,
the fast tail girl. Don't be messing with the fast tail girl. Okay, stay away from her. She was ostracized.
That is true.
And the women used to do that. The women used to check women for trying to put a baby on a man that's not his. The women in your family used to come up, look at that baby, say, "Wait a minute, okay, is there any resemblance to one of us? If there's not, they're gonna check that woman." But they don't. They've abdicated that position. It doesn't exist anymore. And it's not like they did it a lot, or they weren't as harsh as like the patriarchal people in the white community. But things, at least they did it. They don't even do it anymore.
But the thing is, the women in your family may have done it, but the women in her family would be kicking down your door trying to get you to take responsibility. So now that we're in this era of DNA, I think men have drastically underestimated how important DNA actually can be, in regard to protecting ourselves from this kind of thing. Because women have never managed themselves well when it comes to accusing men of being responsible. We now have the means to determine that responsibility, and I'm hoping we take it seriously.
The reason Iyanla Vanzant's mother did not kick down that man's door is because she was messing with a married man that she had no business being with. That's the reason that she didn't do it. Trust and believe, if it hadn't been for that, she would have went to that boy and to that boy's family. But she was a side chick. But she was a side chick to a married man. Okay, that had another family, and you ain't supposed to be doing it. So how are you gonna try to put a baby on him? And you're the one in the wrong.
Black Guru weighs in, says the Black church used to handle that business. The old Black church usher board, the usher board, these hoes on the behind.
I remember there's a Luke Cage episode about the same thing.
Yep.
Yep.
I also remember to what Dr. Johnson was talking about. It was the Scarface. Scarface had the song, and I can't remember the name of the song, but he was talking about the girl said he had a baby and he had to take it to Ma Dukes to figure out if it was his or not. Yeah. And you remember which song that was?
Because I remember that. I remember that though. But now we have DNA, and we hesitate to invoke DNA, and I get it.
Yeah,
I have been the man in the room when my wife is giving birth, and there are multiple generations of women in that room. I did it as a young man. Most don't have the capacity to say, despite everybody in this room and even my love for her, I am getting a DNA test. Most people can't do that.
Yeah.
Man, this is one of the reasons we're pushing for mandatory DNA. But go ahead. What were you saying, Dead Set?
Oh, I caught hell for that because for my with my son, nearly every woman in my family came after me when I said, "No, you getting this tested? This boy, we gonna find out that this boy is mine or not. If this boy is mine or not."
You either have to be a young man with an incredible amount of discipline and integrity, or you have to be an older man who's been through some shit. But for the most part, it takes one of the two for you to ask that, especially when you have multiple families of mostly women in the room with this new baby. And a woman and female nurses on top of that. And you're the only man in the room talking about we getting a DNA test. Now, if it's mandatory and it's policy based, I think that absolves many young men from having to navigate that. Now we get to deal with the results, and that's one of the reasons why we push for mandatory DNA testing.
And it will stop young women from being reckless with their wombs.
That's true.
There's accountability on the table.
Like I was just reading this maybe a month ago about Jamaica, right? Remember, the paternity clinics coming back 70%, not the father, right? Negative, right? So they were trying to pass a law of DNA test at birth, right? But they said they didn't because they're afraid that a lot of women will probably wind up missing if they did.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I had a woman reach out to me and she said, well, the problem with DNA testing is that once they secure that material, then you might have to deal with issues of ownership, and companies might exploit the biomatter for one way or another. And I was like, I haven't really reflected on that. You may have something there that I need to look at, but I don't hear enough that would push me to not have mandatory DNA, because all you're doing is pushing us back to the time period where men just have to accept women's word. But we've lived that. We know where that goes. Go ahead.
I don't understand the bio material argument, because you're going to do lab tests and all kinds of tests where they're going to take, biological material from your body. Just, that, I don't know, it just sounds like a bad argument to me.
It did, but to me, at the end of the day, it was like, whether it was a good one or a bad one, I still ain't heard enough.
Yeah, the
It would change my mind.
The percentages of bad DNA tests are so small that it's not even worth talking about.
Yeah,
I think she was using the same logic as the 23andMe and the DNA company, Ancestry, and they were, people were talking about, how people are using that DNA material and exploiting it for different means and using it for different purposes. And I'm like, okay, I'm not denying that. I'll wait for more data to come out, but at the end of the day, I'm not willing to push men. First of all, we haven't fully stepped into a space where we're willing to engage DNA. We haven't done that yet. But to the extent that we haven't done it, I'm not going to urge black men to go back to an era of just taking her word. It just doesn't work.
They, in other words, they use their biomaterial all the time, especially in the hospital, right? They collect samples all the time, blood, urine, when you have it.
But the thing is, I think this is yet another, and this is why when I showed you the article I did on the blog on Generation X, and I showed you the bullet points, one of the reasons I talked about birth control is because this is something that women primarily control.
Right.
And it adds to the capacity of the gynocracy to control family, to control the direction of family, the structure of family, and what takes place in family. These are institutionally sanctioned options that women have to control family. So DNA testing at birth begins to chip away at the power women have in the gynocracy. Because now, if you can absolve yourself of a situation because it's not your child, this does not allow them to control the outcome the way they've been able to in the past. This changes the game. See, technology, whether it's pharmaceutical or something as simple as smartphones, these things are changing the environment. They're changing the options, the dynamics. And what I'm trying to get brothers to do is to move on it. To act on it. This isn't 1988. We don't have to be stuck in any past time period. Take advantage of the moment and operate on your behalf. This is why we created the 18-point Black male political agenda.
I talked to Nicole 4 years ago now, right, about that. And she says, they can actually take a DNA test and separate it out and get a accurate DNA test before the baby's born through the mother's blood.
Well, that's some of the confusion I have around this current. Where is it? Is it Mississippi, where they're trying to give child support at conception?
In other words, you'll be on the hook for it. They won't charge you with the thing. They can go back and actually charge you for it
retroactively.
Yep.
But the problem is they're not adding mandatory DNA testing, because if you add mandatory DNA testing to that whole equation, it changes the conversation dramatically.
He would have to, for her to actually get, she had to sue for it, right? In other words, for her to actually get, retroactively get prenatal expenses back, she'd have to have a DNA test and actually establish paternity. She can't just it's not on her word. No, she has to go to court. Go ahead.
I want to see that. I want to see that language. I want to make sure that language is there, because the articles I've run across that cover it don't mention DNA testing at all. And that may not mean anything. It may actually be in the policy bill itself, but I haven't seen it.
It's not automatic DNA testing at birth. And what it is, if you want child support and you want it retroactively, you have to cover prenatal care, you have to sue for it. So you have to prove paternity from that man. That's DNA.
Well, I'm definitely open. So, but either way, I want.
In fact, that was the other part of the heartbeat bill. Okay, that they finally passed. It was supposed to be part of the whole package, but that got put up later.
But what I'm saying is, I want men to bring that up ourselves.
Okay,
to raise that question. I want that to be one of our talking points.
Yeah,
because a lot of the time, historically, when we've heard this kind of jibber jabber thrown at us, a lot of us have just received it. But we're at a different point now, and I'm saying at this point, I want us to be able to articulate our needs. I don't know if this is the case, but only facts and stats. This goes to Dead Set. It says the Scarface song was on my block.
Oh, thanks. Yep.
Yeah. I love that song too, so I got to go back and listen to it. But anyway, here we go.
At 12 o'clock, we need to talk to you about what's going on out here.
Right.
And we look at not to beat you up, to correct you. Where's that?
To correct us and to protect us.
Okay, because who protected you during that thing?
Exactly.
I know your mama was mad.
Yeah.
I know she and hurt.
Right. Yeah, indeed.
Who protected you?
Who does one
And
go to
the
when those
one
things
little
happen?
thing you say out there in terms of trying to protect you, then they come for you.
Right.
See, I can't manage the energy. So I just,
Right.
you know what I do? I go to my knees.
Prayer.
I go to my knees. I go to the ancestors. I don't have to be on social media. I will do that more if it's going to bring the community together. But when they get into that rabid dog, beat you up, tear you up,
Right.
I don't put my foot in
You don't
it.
play in that.
But it hurt me.
Right.
And you're not the only one. It really hurt me.
Right. Nah, and it's heavy, and I mean, it's like I said. Then, if anything, you turn your pain into purpose, and you hold your head high and you step forward, and that's why we're here today.
Yeah, because you're back.
Yeah.
That's why I say, looking at the bigger picture, the larger context, I see a bigger purpose than just you having kids with multiple women who ain't black. That's what I see.
Come on,
but
somebody.
I could be wrong.
Come
you
on,
know,
somebody.
I'm old.
Nah, we listening to you. You the
It's a
matriarch.
bigger person. It has to be.
See what he
And
called
you know
her?
what? It's none of my damn business.
Right.
My business is to hold you, to protect you.
First of all, most black men can't expect and don't expect protection. But what are you about to say, BGS?
And he called her because you're the matriarch.
Right.
He called her by her title.
Yeah. How many men who have earned it, if we were going to, operate by that standard, are called patriarchs in a loving way? Men who have put it down, protecting their families, taking care of even other families. How many men today are honored as sacred patriarchs and who've put women through school, have raised children that weren't theirs? And I'm talking to at least one who I know of that has done that on one level or another. But how many of them can even be honored in that way in today's culture?
You know what it's reminded me of? That question. I don't know if it's on social media. It's that that girl Maddie who went viral about talking about her dad online, and the white dad gave the response video.
I saw I didn't watch the videos. I saw them in my stream. I didn't see them, so I don't know what happened.
Okay. Well, long story short, she made the video about him calling him a deadbeat. He responded, said that he wasn't a deadbeat. She made another video saying that he was lying, and then he made a video showing receipts. Lots of receipts. And number two, the guy was wealthy. He had a $2 million settlement with $18,000 in child support per month. And she was saying that he did not do all of these things. He wasn't paying medical bills, the whole 9 yards. And he brought up all those receipts, pictures on outings, her career at her graduations, all of that stuff. Now, this is a girl who had everything from her divorced dad. And at this end of history, because of what the mother said to her, the way she was poisoned, she thinks her dad was a deadbeat when her dad was still giving to her.
Yes.
That very day.
Yeah. How did it end? Did she say anything?
Well, if you go on social media and you start tracking the story, now you have people who are adamant about her side of the story, but most people are calling her a liar now.
See, that's different. And this was a white family, right?
This is a white family.
When I started the blog that I gave you you guys one of the articles on, when I first started the blog, I used it in my classes, and it was for the final assignment of the class, where students were to find a 45-plus-year-old black male and interview him about his life, and put the transcription of that interview in a final document, and I uploaded it to the blog for all to see. I can't tell you how many women who had no connection to anything I knew of as far as the student or the man, but they would write the blog and ask me to take down the pieces honoring these black men because they weren't shit. I can't tell you how often it occurred. And these men, they just submitted to an interview one time. They weren't even following the blog. They weren't doing so they had nothing to do with it. It was just, they were up there and they were honored in this interview. And there were a number of black women that would keep writing in over years, writing to someone they didn't even know, me, just to tell me how he wasn't worthy of being honored and I should take him down. And I was amazed at that. And these men didn't have an opportunity to put up receipts, but they were being, dismissed. And if that's happening online, what's happening in families?
Oh, yeah.
So here we go.
you know, and even, you know, a lot of the youngins out here, I can't get to them. When a lot of them, when I see something, I'll go in the DM and I'll say, I'm here if you need me. Call me.
That's
Some
powerful.
do, some don't.
Well, I need you. I need you. I'm glad I have you. And we're gonna wrap up this session as well. But we did it. The other term, let's end here is, and you said you come from one.
A broken home.
Yeah, I believe we all have experienced that.
A home with no love is a broken home. A home that is not safe for the child or the adults is a broken home. A home that
So is a single parent home a broken home?
hell no. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I
No,
say
you can
that?
say
out?
that.
I
You can say that.
Oh, this HBO and Netflix are one of
Yeah,
them
this
people,
is,
right?
we say whatever the hell we want to say. This council
Hell
culture.
no. A broken home is a home that is absent of love. A home that is absent of safety. A home that is absent of security. A home that is absent of order. I believe every home has to be SOS. Safe, orderly, secure. That children have to know what's coming. They have to know, you know, and of course there's all kind of problems. Me and my kids got evicted and thrown out and that kind of stuff. But I told them, we getting ready to move. Right now.
Get your stuff. They coming.
Well, where are we going? I'm not sure yet, but
It's gonna be fun. Road trip.
And when we get there, we're going to have pizza. Children will do anything for pizza.
Wow.
That's so true.
So, you know, a home where there's arguing, fighting, domestic violence. I grew up in domestic violence. Listen, I was 30 when I realized I was raised in a two-parent home. I was like, oh, hell. There was two people.
It was two people there.
And one of them was drunk and quiet, and the other one was, you know, overly everything. But that to me was, I grew up in a broken home, a two-parent broken home with two broken people who did the best they could, and it still wasn't enough. Hear me, they did the best they could, and it still wasn't enough. And it was exactly what I needed to become who I am. Exactly.
It's powerful.
You got exactly what you needed to become who you are. And my prayer, my wish, my desire is that you become stronger and stronger in who you are, not who people think you should be. Integrity. Be accountable. Take care of your kids. Take care of yourself. That's why I asked you going to therapy, what's your intention? Don't just be going to therapy because you know, somebody told you it was crazy. Right? Okay? And you have a purpose, you have a meaning. And you live with that and just master what you're doing. I think that was the thing for me. Once I began to master my craft, I'm good at what I do because I mastered it from the inside out. There's not anything that I can teach or say that I haven't applied to myself, because I couldn't sit with people weeping and crying and they're triggering up my stuff. I got to be as solid as I can in here to be able to support. So for me, it was mastery. So many black men, if they would just master themselves, master their minds, and master their behaviors, not that you won't have an occasional stumble, I think that the world would, whether the world saw them differently or not, wouldn't matter. They would show up differently. Their presence would be different. And that's why I'm working with men this year.
I heard that. Taking aim. Accountability, integrity, and mastery. We're going to pause there. We got a lot more to talk about, but
All right. So I don't know if that means they have another one. I may or may not cover it depending on what they deal with.
Yeah,
But
it sounds like they have another one coming.
so any closing thoughts? And I'm going to start with Dead Set here. It's something you want people to walk away with, either from this exchange or anything else that's on your mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, the problem that I have with this is nobody understands a male better than men do. And nobody understands, you know, what men are our expectations versus the demands of this that the states put on us or the society puts on us. Because if we don't live up to those demands, then everything collapses. We all know this. And that makes us, I mean, that is an abyss of difference between what women have to go through. So the idea of a woman telling a male, or even counseling a male on some of the issues that they're dealing with, I'm sort of repulsed by it.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that they have the lived experience or the societal expectation or the societal pressures that men have to have, whether it's, you know, going to war, having to work our way through things, which is causing a lot of men to just like say, look, screw it, I'm just gonna play video games and use the Jergens. It's it's mind-boggling that we're still going down this road,
Mhm.
and it's proven to be ineffective.
Mm.
What can she say to that man about his life that's really impactful?
Mhm.
I don't
Mhm.
think there's anything she can say.
Yeah, that she's if you listen, you explain a lot about the matriarchy and how the family formation is very similar to hers. 'Cause
Right.
it's almost word for word the same thing she went through. Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, it's understanding that. It's just that, there's this truth about men have to understand women in order to get women.
Yeah,
Women don't
to get
have to
one.
understand men
Exactly.
to get men.
Yeah.
And we don't require
Our,
that.
our women don't have to understand us. Okay. White women
Yeah.
have to understand men to get men. They do. So
Well, we don't require it. But I
We
will
don't.
say, even if you're talking about the field, in terms of psychology or counseling / therapy,
mhm.
I do believe there needs to be, and it probably needs to take the form of a whole subfield
Yeah.
like Black male studies, but there needs to be a field that exonerates masculinity and manhood, at least from an empirical, historical, and an analytical framework. Because I think what happens when you have, you have an environment in the university that's overwhelmingly feminist in its orientation,
Yeah.
and then you start talking about providing, psychological resources to people with a majority female population,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to really end up just pushing mass feminism on people who are often vulnerable and need help.
Yeah.
And even when you get down to the number of bodies in terms of male, counselors, there's already a select few. But if they've been raised
Mhm.
and trained in a feminist framework, they're going to still give you the same stuff a female counselor will give.
Mhm.
There needs to be a movement that takes place that actually reframes manhood and masculinity in a humanistic way that takes us from stereotype and
Mhm.
deals with the reality of men. And I think that has to take place in a major way if it's going to at all be of use, because I can't tell you how many brothers, including myself, who have gone and had couples therapy or any
Oh
kind of
yeah.
therapy
Oh
with
yeah.
overwhelmingly female therapists
Yeah.
Yep.
and come back scratching their heads like, what the hell was that?
And they expect you to fix it. Okay.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
yeah. But they usually, especially if it's couples therapy, they usually end up double teamed.
Yeah. Yeah. In other words, what aren't you doing for your wife to keep you guys together?
And when that's the question you get asked from the first session onward,
Mm-hmm.
it not only makes you the enemy, but it clearly lets you know the posture that they're taking. It's all about her pleasure and peace
Mm-hmm.
and what you're not doing. And she and I are going to join in this discussion to talk about what you need to do, man. I won't say most, a number of brothers I've spoken to have been through that scenario who have been in marriages for over 20 years. They've gone through 5-6 years of couple counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And when they come out of it, they're well trained.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to one of my boys about this, last year. I said, well, what's the result of this training? Well, I learned I needed to be more sensitive and caring and this and that. And I say, okay, well, what did she learn about what she needs to do for you? Silence,
Crickets. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
crickets. And it
Mm-hmm.
was like, well, and then when I'd say, well, why don't you push that? No, I don't want to rock the boat. We're in a good place. Well,
Yeah.
of course you're in a good place because you've been trained to serve her and you got spanked to
And,
serve her. And
and
that's it.
as long as you're serving her, everything's happy.
And everything's happy. But
And that's
your needs are not met.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about brothers who didn't have sexual access in their own marriage for a decade,
Mm-hmm.
but they're still telling you about what they need to do to make sure she's at peace.
She's at peace because the marriage is more important than their own personal pleasure.
Right. Which sounds great in a sacrificial, chivalrous way, but on
It is.
a human level,
Mm-hmm.
he's not able to get anything he needs. I won't say anything, but he's not able to get the things he values that he needs, and he just has to accept it.
You're a suffering, dusty Christ on the cross. That's what you are.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I like when people ask me, how did you get your wife to sign a post-nup? I was like, those good times, that's when you're always on your feet.
I still can't believe you got her to do that shit, man. Like I say, you're my spirit animal. Okay.
Look, I'm telling y'all, take those good times and turn them into your advantage.
Yeah.
Was
Because
there a reason you didn't do a prenup? Is it why did you do the post?
You got both.
yeah,
Oh shit!
both. And on top of that, I protected my assets, legally.
Mhm.
So, but the thing about the post-nup is that it reinforces the prenup.
Mhm.
And and I hear not a lot of people talk about that, but y'all are going to have some high times.
Mhm.
If you're in a good marriage, y'all going to have some high times.
Mhm.
Always think strategically, because you don't know what's going to happen in 10 years
Mhm.
or in 5 years or even next year.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, brothers,
Which is why the judge don't like you, because your case is airtight.
but there's another angle to that too, BGS.
Mhm.
That type of thing, when you do that type of thing, like after she signed it, she was excited
Mhm.
because she saw it as a masculine thing to do. He's taking leadership.
Mhm.
I'm sitting back like, I'm taking this shit away from you, but you can take it any way you want.
Wow. I don't know how to feel about that though. You got a pre and a post, and you still have to go to court like this.
That's because she leveraged the court against me using child abuse.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Even though there was never evidence, but
Even though there was even 2 investigations, no evidence.
yeah, they were waiting. All they needed was a reason.
Yep.
So the accusation alone was enough to disrupt the pre and the post nup?
Well, she could not get any assets.
Mhm.
That part was set in stone.
Yeah.
But as far as losing sole and physical custody of my children, I lost that.
Yeah.
I don't have any rights with them.
Yeah, because under the teenager's doctrine, basically you get parental guardianship, right? You get parental rights. You don't have parental ownership. You don't own your children. The state does.
Right. And the only liberty that you get is found in the 6th and the 14th Amendment.
Yeah.
Yep.
Damn. Well, look, I wanted to give Dead Set an opportunity to give his closing thoughts, and I appreciate you coming up, especially without much warning. I appreciate that, brother.
Hey. Oh, one more thing though. I saw you I saw your post on Facebook talk about Star Trek, and it was the one about about the Resistance. Started with the Resistance.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the only thing I had to say about that was after Voyager season 4, I decided Resistance was futile.
That was you. I did see that. I did see that post. I was like, who is that?
Because 7 and 9 was bad. Okay.
Yes, you were. And Janeway hated her guts.
Yeah. I got tired of looking at that flat woman all season. 3 seasons of that ugly woman. But that's it. I'm out.
All right, man. I appreciate you coming through, man.
Peace. BGS, big brother.
Yes, sir.
Catch you later.
All right. All right.
All right, BGS. Go ahead and close us out.
I don't have that much to say, but the thing is that halfway through the session, it seems like Iyanla Vanzant was in therapy with Nick as much as he was in therapy with her, because there was a whole lot of trauma, whole lot of pain about her father, and a whole lot of angst about how she was raised, and the shame, and that shame came out about her mother and her father, but she could never bring herself to actually blame her mother for what happened.
No, she couldn't. But this to me is a fundamental problem I've had since the 80s. One of the things when I teach about the history of feminism, when I get to the 80s, at some point I start talking about hip hop, because this is when you start to see non-academic, usually young Black men who are starting to respond to feminism. They're responding to this Oprah, induced feminism. So you had the Ice Cubes and eventually the Tupacs. You had these guys that were saying, look, I get it. Y'all want to be independent and strong, but this chick in the club just tried to accuse me of raping her, and I don't even know who she is. When are you going to talk about that aspect of women and their behavior? This is a response coming from young Black men via hip hop to this, this white collar, degreed Black feminist framework, right? And all of this is embodied to me in a discussion that Ice Cube ended up having with oh man, what's her name? Oh shoot. How am I blanking on her name? She's known for her afro. Angela Davis.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Dr. Angela Davis at this point, right? So Dr. Angela Davis has a sit down with Ice Cube to discuss gender and sexism. It's a similar thing happening in this conversation with Nick Cannon and with Iyanla Vanzant. You're talking about a mother figure and a son figure having a conversation.
Right.
That's not really what I want to see. I've been seeing that for decades. I want to see a man of stature who knows what he's talking about, having a conversation with a woman that's equal to his, like that's the conversation I want to see. That's the kind of conversation that puts an Iyanla, and pushes back, not just to be antagonistic just because, but because he knows enough to push back where it needs to be pushed back, where questions need to be raised that other people don't want to say, and a younger man may not think to say to a mother figure.
Right.
This is the dynamic I want to see more of, but you notice you don't get to see that often, right? And even sometimes when you do, the kind of men brought in are tap dancing.
Yeah.
It kind of like what was it when Roland was talking to Tiffany Henyard in his interview? Tap dancing.
Tap dancing, yeah.
But not the kind of brothers that, young or old, that are willing to push back for the sake of truth and articulate things that may not be comfortable.
They won't be in the same room with that guy.
No. Yeah. And that's kind of the problem. And that's what I saw in this interview. I mean, it wasn't like it was an academic exchange, but at the end of the day, there were moments where I thought it would have been more fruitful to push back, but Nick doesn't know enough to do that, especially with a mother figure.
And yeah, especially with a matriarch, okay, because he worships her. That's his God.
Exactly. Exactly. But if you're going to have a kind of conversation with the men who know enough to actually raise the question, why haven't you checked your mother? Why haven't you mentioned anything about your mother's role in this? She keeps bringing her mother into this, but she absolves her mother of all responsibility to talk about her father. Why don't you challenge that? He didn't know enough to challenge that.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't challenge it in his own family. In the last show, when he talks about his family, he venerates the mothers and the grandmothers. He doesn't know enough to call them into question. So we walk away with this sense yet again that to fall on your sword, bend the knee, kiss the ring, be silent, you're a good man. You get patted on the head. You're a good black man. If you raise questions, you're a sexist.
Yeah.
I want to see men to challenge that.
In fact, Dr. Neal just had he had a post on Facebook about that in academia.
What?
Basically to be there and as represented, but to shut up and not say anything and go along to get along.
Yes. But even in these exchanges, there are public men, whether they're academics or not, who would be willing to have a real conversation, and that's what I'm saying needs to happen more. What we see are kind of like these Trump. What is it that who's Mike Tyson about to fight?
Oh, I can't remember the white guy's name.
White boy's name. It's not a real fight. You know what I mean? These are show pony, fights that are designed to get your attention and raise money. They're not real fights. None of these dudes are really going in there to really kick his ass, and they all could. But I'm saying in the same way, that's what I see these conversations with these older feminists are. They handpick these men who know enough, or who don't know enough to push back, or don't know how to, or are unwilling to. And they have these show pony discussions, but nobody pushes back against her bullshit. And I'm saying this needs to happen for the betterment of people who are listening to these shows, who are actually trying to understand themselves and their environment.
Yeah.
It's not about arbitrarily being mean to folks just because. It's about actually using these spaces for the sake of self-improvement. And you can't have that if only one demographic gets denigrated and the other gets to walk off scot-free.
Yeah, you perpetuate the same thing over and over and over again.
Yes.
And we saw shows like this in the 70s, 60s, and 70s. It's not new.
Jake Paul, that's his name. Whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it's not new. But you already got people asking if you're gonna go again tonight. So
we'll see. Give me about an hour or so. Well, Doc, normally, how many hours do you actually normally do, Doc?
What are you talking about?
I said normally on a normal night you barely do 2, right? Where we at now, man?
You're at 3.
3 and counting, right?
We had a good one, but I'm also talking to the founder of the Coliseum, so I remember when there were some 11-hour shows. Don't nobody want to talk about that.
My record is 13. So
see that. But anyway, man, I do appreciate you coming through, especially on short notice. And I had a lot more fun, talking to you, talking to Dead Set than I would have just by myself. So thank you.
Yeah, it's really more like you actually get to peek inside what we really talk about on the phone.
Yeah.
More than that, because I mean, I mean, what I heard from Iyanla Vanzant and Nick is standard, but she revealed a lot more about herself in the session.
Hmm.
You know,
Yes, she did.
about her mother and her father, how really bitter how she feels towards her father. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
but she absolves her mother of blame.
Well, it's something Maggie said in the comments a little earlier. She was
Okay.
saying for someone of, and I'm paraphrasing, but she was saying for someone of her stature,
Hmm.
you would think that she would have been more resolved about some of these matters.
Yeah,
And you heard the little girl come out that was
especially
unresolved.
especially at her age, and it's almost
Yes,
like Nick had to do therapy for her.
without the skill
It's
or
the
the
skill
know-how,
or the
but
know-how. Yeah, he was
but
doing emotional labor for her
he was doing emotional labor and protecting her
and
from
protecting her.
ruining her own image at times.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that's the labor men are familiar with that we've learned to do. And you learn this when you're young. There's a little short video I played once a couple years ago. It was a little TikTok, I think, and it was a black boy sitting with his mother, and
Mm,
his mother was asking him if he wanted to one day marry a woman like her.
mm,
And he got real quiet, and he was about 6 years old or so,
yeah,
and he looked at me and he said, "Well, mama, no, not really, but you're still a beautiful woman." And he was patting her on the arm,
yeah,
and it was hilarious, and she was laughing. But
yeah.
what I saw in that moment was emotional labor.
Emotional
You
labor.
learn that as a child. If your mother is pissed with you, it can affect everything, not just whether or not you get to stay up and watch TV, but how she treats you, whether or not you eat. You know what I mean? Your well-being is
Yeah.
based on her emotional well-being, and you learn this as a child.
Yes.
We
Yep.
learn how to seduce, and I don't necessarily mean sexually. These are the earliest stages of seduction. But as a child, you learn how to seduce, how to
Mm,
please, how to
mm,
be funny, how to
yeah.
you learn all of that trying to keep
Yeah.
women in your family happy.
Yeah. I notice how my grandson does it for the women in his family. How he's charming and he caters to them and caters to their ego, even at 11 years old. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you, bro. Appreciate you coming through.
all right, Doc.
All right, man. Have a good one. Um, y'all look for BGS a little bit later. For those of you that wanted to, I think it was a continuation of some things you guys were talking about earlier on his show. If you're not familiar, you should be going to the BGS IBMOR. Look up BGS space IBMOR on YouTube. You should, like, subscribe, all that good stuff to the Good Brothers channel, and go from there. Anyway, other than that, I really appreciate everybody coming out. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. I want to know what you think we missed, what else should be in there, what else was should have been discussed, maybe even some outside information about the two people involved that we don't know much about. But feel free to add that stuff, and I greatly appreciate y'all coming through. And y'all have a good night. Peace. I am here to tell you, brothers, we are not criminals by birth, perennial rapists, incapable intellects, man-children, sperm donors, child support wellsprings, success objects, walking phalluses, ATM machines, lottery tickets, unintelligent henchmen, valueless assassins, pro bono mercenaries, unpaid bodyguards, interchangeable stepfathers, child discipline proxies, unpaid repairmen, workhorses, emotional tampons, or any other socially accepted dehumanizing stereotype. We are thinkers, inventors, innovators, leaders, fathers, and men. Embrace your humanity, know your worth, and extend your time, attention, and resources only to those who genuinely respect you. And remember, your worth is not defined by meeting other people's narcissistic, selfish, and unrealistic needs. You define your worth. Peace.